The boardroom was silent, except for the steady hum of the projector. Landen sat at the head of the long glass table, reviewing quarterly projections while his team waited for his input. Everything about the moment felt controlled, until his phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. He almost ignored it. Almost, but something in his chest pulled his eyes to the screen. He swiped to answer. A calm but urgent voice spoke. "Mr. Jennings, your ex-wife Nicole is in labor. She's giving birth to twins." The papers in Landen's hands slipped, scattering across the table. The room froze. Every executive turned toward him, confused, unsure whether to speak or remain still. Landen couldn't breathe. Twins? Nicole? Now? His chair screeched backward as he stood so fast he nearly knocked the table. His heart slammed against his ribs. His vision narrowed. He didn't wait for explanations. He pushed open the boardroom door and rushed into the hallway, his pulse racing louder than his footsteps. For months he had carried the weight of her absence. But this shattered him. Have you ever lost someone because you didn't realize how much they meant? Until the moment they were gone. Have you ever wished for just one more chance to fix what you broke? Because that's exactly where Landen stood, breathless, shaken, and terrified that the life he had taken for granted might be slipping even further out of reach. Landen didn't just lose Nicole. He lost her trust. He lost their marriage. He lost every opportunity to make things right. Now he might be losing something even deeper. The chance to be a father to children he never knew existed. Questions chased him as he ran toward the elevator. Would Nicole even let him in the room? Were the twins even his? Could a love this cracked ever find its way back? A single phone call had just changed his entire world, but the second blow was still waiting. Hours later, as Landen stepped into the soft-lit room at St. Mercy Hospital, Nicole sat propped against the pillows, holding two tiny newborns against her chest. She looked up. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it pierced him straight through. "Landen?" Everything inside him collapsed. Lord, I lift up every heart listening to this story. Every spirit of fear, every spirit of anxiety, every quiet heaviness trying to sit on their chest. I command it to leave in the name of Jesus. Amen. Before we continue, please like this video. It helps YouTube push this story to more people. And comment, "I'm watching so I know you're here with me." Thank you for being part of Mr. Brian Inspires. Welcome back to Mr. Brian Inspires. I'm Mr. Brian, and I'm really glad you're here. You know, life has a way of throwing challenges at us when we least expect it. Sometimes we feel stuck. Sometimes we just need a reminder that we're capable of so much more than we think. So if you're ready to be inspired, if you're ready to discover something powerful, then stay with me. And hey, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button because we're building a community of people who believe that every story has the power to change lives. All right, let's get to it. Landen stood frozen at the doorway, unable to step farther into the room. Nicole's eyes held so many emotions: exhaustion, guardedness, confusion, and something else he couldn't read. The twins rested against her chest, tiny hands curled, soft breaths rising and falling in quiet rhythm. He felt unworthy to take a single step closer. The last time they spoke, her voice broke. The last time he saw her, she walked away carrying pain he caused. Now she held two lives he never knew existed. His throat tightened. "Nicole, I didn't know." It was all he could manage. Nicole looked at him for a moment, studying his face, almost searching for something. The weight of everything between them, the hurt, the distance, the choices, it all sat in that silent pause. She shifted slightly, adjusting the blanket around the babies. "You weren't supposed to," she murmured. It wasn't anger. It was something heavier, something honest. Landen swallowed hard. He didn't want to push, didn't want to beg, didn't want to ruin whatever thin moment of calm they had. He stepped inside slowly, each footstep careful, unsure if he had the right to be there, but unable to walk away. His eyes drifted to the twins again. Two tiny faces, peaceful and unaware of the storm that shaped their entrance into the world. A quiet ache ran through him. Was he their father? Would he ever know? Nicole looked exhausted, but she lifted her chin just slightly, the same way she did whenever she needed strength. The same way she looked the day she told him she couldn't stay in a marriage where she felt unseen. Even now, she carried strength he admired. "Can I?" Landen hesitated, afraid of the answer. "Can I come closer?" Nicole didn't say yes. She didn't say no. Instead, she shifted the blanket again, giving him room to step forward if he chose to. For Landen, that silence felt like a doorway, not open, but no longer shut. He moved closer. The soft glow from the hospital monitor washed over the twins, lighting their cheeks. One had a faint curl forming. The other had Nicole's nose, a small, perfect version of hers. Landen's breath shook. He whispered, almost to himself, "They're beautiful." Nicole looked down at them, her voice barely a whisper. They didn't ask for any of this. Neither did she, neither did he. But life had brought them back into the same room. Not as a couple, not as enemies, but as two people holding a truth too big to ignore. A nurse walked by outside, wheels squeaking softly. Somewhere down the hall, a newborn cried. But here, in this quiet space, time felt slower. Landen gently placed a hand on the bed rail, grounding himself. "I'm not here to make things harder," he said. "I just needed to see if you were okay, both of you." Nicole looked up again, eyes soft but cautious. "It's not just about me anymore," she replied. He nodded. He knew everything had changed, and deep down, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Fragile, trembling, but real. Because standing here, facing the consequences of his mistakes, facing Nicole's strength, facing the lives he might be connected to, he realized this wasn't the end of a story. It might be the beginning of a different one. But whether he would be part of it, that was still in Nicole's hands. The soft hum of a string quartet floated through the grand hall of the Manhattan Harbor Foundation. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead, catching flashes of champagne flutes and glittering name tags. The annual Winter Promise Charity Gala brought out CEOs, political figures, and donors with checkbooks larger than some city budgets. It was the type of room where every conversation carried an agenda, every smile hid calculations, and every handshake sealed silent favors. Landen Jennings had attended these events since his 20s. At 31, he was no longer just an ambitious tech entrepreneur. He was the billionaire people whispered about when he walked in. Tonight, his tailored navy suit matched his calm expression, but his mind buzzed with thoughts of acquisitions, future planning, and the upcoming launch of a new educational tech platform. He wasn't here to socialize. He was here because leaders like him were expected to be visible, polished, and generous. Yet beneath all that, he was tired. Tired of routine. Tired of expectations. Tired of the same conversations year after year. He lifted another glass of sparkling water and scanned the room for Miles or Sawyer, hoping to make a quick exit. But as he turned, his gaze snagged on something. Someone he hadn't seen at any gala before. Across the room, near the floral centerpiece table, a woman adjusted a microphone stand. Her dress wasn't sequined or extravagant. It was simple, elegant, and flowed with her movements. Her hair was styled in soft curls that framed her face, and when she smiled at a volunteer beside her, something inside Landen paused. Nicole. He didn't know her name yet, but the way she carried herself, calm, warm, grounded, was so different from the curated perfection around him that it felt like a quiet breeze in a room full of artificial air. He blinked, taken aback by how naturally his attention settled on her. Nicole laughed at something the volunteer said, her laughter light and real, unforced in a space where authenticity was rare. She didn't seem intimidated by the high-profile crowd. She looked comfortable being herself, a quality Landen had forgotten people could even have at events like this. Something nudged him to walk closer. He didn't overthink it. For the first time that evening, he felt curious, not about a business lead or a technological breakthrough, but about a woman who didn't seem to know she was shining in a room designed to outshine everyone. As he approached the table, Nicole glanced up, and their eyes met. She offered a polite smile, assuming he was another donor checking the display. "Good evening," she said, adjusting the arrangement of lilies. "Just a moment. These flowers have a mind of their own tonight." Her voice was warm, tinged with humor. Landen found himself smiling, genuinely, unexpectedly. "No rush. I didn't know flowers could be picky." "They can," she replied, lifting a brow playfully. "Especially when they know they're on display for wealthy people who might judge them." He chuckled. "I think they're safe. Most people here only judge numbers on checks." Nicole grinned. "Fair point." He extended a hand. "I'm Landen." "I know," she said before she could stop herself, then laughed softly. "I mean, I don't know you, but your face is kind of everywhere in the tech world." Landen felt a genuine warmth at her honesty. Most people pretended not to know him. She didn't bother. "And you are?" he asked. "Nicole." Their handshake was brief, but something in that moment felt unexpectedly steady, like meeting someone who wasn't trying to impress him or gain anything from him. She turned back to fix a crooked name card. "I'm volunteering tonight. They needed extra hands for setup." "You don't work for the foundation?" he asked, surprised. "No. I just help out when my schedule allows." She shrugged modestly. "It's good energy, good people. Mostly." Her eyes twinkled, hinting at humor beneath her calm. He liked that. "What do you do when you're not rescuing flowers from judgmental billionaires?" he teased. Nicole laughed again, an easy, genuine sound. "I'm a community counselor. I work with families on the south side of the city." "That sounds rewarding," Landen said. "It is. Some days more than others." She paused, noticing something in his tone. "And you? What do you do when you're not being, well, you?" "Being me takes up a lot of time," he replied honestly. "But I'm trying to figure out what I do for myself. Outside of work." Nicole tilted her head slightly, studying him with gentle curiosity. "That sounds like a full-time job." "It feels like it." Their conversation flowed naturally, standing there beside a table of neatly arranged donation envelopes. In a room full of strategic networking, they talked like people who had stumbled into a corner where honesty was allowed. A volunteer approached Nicole with a question, and she excused herself briefly. When she returned, she found Landen still there. "You waited?" she asked, sounding surprised. "I wasn't done talking to you." Her cheeks warmed slightly. She tried to hide it by adjusting another flower stem. As they continued talking, Nicole mentioned her neighborhood, close-knit, loud, full of life. She described Sunday dinners at her mother Marceline's house, where conversation flowed freely and plates never stayed full for long. She explained how kids in the community ran through the street like they owned the world, and how every neighbor felt responsible for every child. "It's real," she said. "Messy sometimes, but real." Landen listened, fascinated. He didn't grow up with anything like that. His childhood was structured, scheduled, academically driven. He admired the warmth she described, the everyday joy of it. "I'd like to see it one day," he said before he could think. Nicole blinked. "My neighborhood?" "Yeah." She laughed softly, not mocking, just surprised. "People from this side of town don't usually say that." "Well," he lifted a shoulder. "I might not be typical." "No," she said gently. "You're not." In turn, Landen described his days filled with board meetings, investor calls, and late nights at the office. Nicole listened politely, but listened deeply too. When he mentioned a 14-hour workday, she asked simply, "Do you ever rest?" He opened his mouth to answer, then realized he didn't have one. Nicole smiled knowingly. "That's what I thought." He couldn't remember the last time someone cared enough to ask that. Their connection didn't rush or spark dramatically. It settled quietly, steadily, like recognizing someone you didn't know you needed to meet. Nicole checked her watch eventually. "I should finish setting up. Guests will start arriving soon. Can I help?" he asked. She looked amused. "You? Help with what?" "Something. Anything." Nicole handed him a stack of programs. "Okay, Billionaire. Start with these. Try not to drop them." The tease in her voice made him grin. As they worked side by side, he noticed small things. The way she hummed softly while concentrating. The way she encouraged nervous volunteers. The way she created calm without forcing it. He admired her more with every passing moment. At one point, Landen stepped away to greet a donor who recognized him. The conversation dragged on longer than he intended. When he returned, he found Nicole packing up some leftover supplies. She glanced at him briefly. "You didn't have to come back. I know people in here pull your attention." He heard something in her tone, something faint but real. "I wasn't done talking to you," he said softly. Nicole offered a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes the same way as before. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't jealousy. It was simply the first moment where their two worlds rubbed against each other and produced friction neither fully recognized yet. A small misunderstanding. Not harmful. Just a sign that blending lives from different worlds would take intention. Before we continue, let me pause for just a moment. If you're still watching and this story is speaking to you, please like this video. It helps more people find these powerful stories. And tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I love knowing the community that gathers around these moments. All right, let's keep going. As the event moved into full swing and speeches filled the room, Nicole and Landen parted ways to handle their respective roles, but their eyes met more than once across the crowd, each time with that quiet acknowledgement: something happened tonight. Something neither of them expected. Later, when the gala ended and people filtered out, Nicole found him again near the exit. "Thanks for helping," she said. "Thanks for letting me." There was a brief silence, not awkward, just full of thoughts neither voiced. "Would you ever want to grab coffee sometime?" Landen asked finally. Nicole raised an eyebrow. "Coffee?" "Yes," he said, steady now. "Coffee." She considered him for a moment, not playing coy, simply thoughtful. Then she nodded lightly. "Okay, coffee. Tomorrow?" She smiled. "Let's start with yes, and we'll figure out the details later." Landen felt a quiet spark inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. As Nicole walked away, he knew one thing: he hadn't just met someone interesting. He had met someone who made him feel something real, and he wasn't ready to let that go. The next morning, the city woke slowly beneath pale sunlight streaking across the skyline. Landen stood at his apartment window, coffee in hand, replaying moments from the gala. Nicole's laughter, her steady gaze, the warmth she carried without trying. He had attended events with influential people for years, yet her presence eclipsed all of them with ease. He checked his phone twice, debating whether to message her. Should he? Should he wait? Did she even want him to? After 15 minutes of overthinking, he finally typed, "Good morning. Coffee still on the table?" He hit send before fear could stop him. A few minutes later, his phone buzzed. "Good morning, Landen." "Yes, but pick a place where the flowers aren't judging us this time." He laughed. It was early, but she somehow made the morning feel lighter. "Deal. 10 Works for me." He got ready quicker than usual, almost like the day itself mattered. And it did. They met at a small cafe on the east side, the kind with wooden tables, soft music, and the aroma of roasting beans filling the space. Nicole was already there, wearing a cozy sweater and jeans, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail. She looked relaxed, beautiful in a way that didn't require effort. "Hey," she said, smiling as he approached. "Hey," he replied, hoping she couldn't hear how fast his heart sped up. The barista took their orders, her usual vanilla latte, his plain black coffee, and they settled into a corner table. "So," Nicole began, sipping her drink, "are you always this early, or should I be flattered today?" "I'm usually early," he said, then smirked. "But you can still be flattered." Nicole laughed, resting her elbow on the table. "Confidence looks good on you." Landen wasn't used to compliments that weren't tied to success. Her words reached him in a different way. They talked about simple things first: favorite foods, morning routines, what they did to unwind. Nicole shared how she sometimes stayed up late listening to old-school R&B playlists, letting the melodies soothe her after long days with clients. "What about you?" she asked. "What's your escape?" He hesitated, thinking. "I don't know if I have one." Nicole tilted her head. "Everyone has something." "Well," he paused, looking a little embarrassed. "I like jazz. I go to this small lounge downtown sometimes. Low lighting, quiet crowd, just music and space to breathe." Her eyes lit up. "I love jazz." "You do?" he asked, surprised. "I grew up listening to it with my mom. She'd play records on Saturday mornings while cleaning or cooking. It stuck with me." He grinned. "Maybe we should go together sometime." "Maybe we should," she agreed softly. A week later, Nicole invited him to an event at her neighborhood community center. It wasn't fancy. No chandeliers, no million-dollar sponsors, no curated guest list. Just families gathering for game night and potluck dishes lined up on foldable tables. When Landen walked in, he felt out of place for the first time in decades. Kids ran between chairs, adults shouted across the room in friendly banter, and music played from an old speaker in the corner. Nicole noticed his stiffness immediately. "Relax," she whispered with a laugh. "Nobody's evaluating your stock portfolio here." He exhaled, easing a little. Marceline spotted them from across the room and gave Nicole a warm wave. She approached with a smile that felt like sunlight. "So this is the man who helped at the gala?" she said. "Yes, Mom," Nicole replied. "This is Landen." Marceline shook his hand firmly. "Well, any friend of Nicole's is welcome here. Grab a plate, eat." Her tone left no room for politeness. She meant it. Landen tried a spoonful of macaroni that nearly melted on his tongue. "This is incredible," he said. Nicole grinned. "Told you, community food hits different." As the evening unfolded, they played board games, laughed with neighbors, and watched a local group perform spoken word poetry. Landen observed the warmth, the connection, the lack of pretense. He admired the way Nicole blended into it naturally, embracing everyone with genuine affection. Later, when they walked outside for air, he said quietly, "I haven't had a night like this in, I don't even know how long." Nicole replied, "Sometimes joy hides in simple places." "That's what I'm learning," he said. In return, Landen invited Nicole to visit his office headquarters on a Saturday afternoon, not for business, but for insight into his passion. The lobby alone felt intimidating, with towering glass walls and sleek architecture. Nicole's eyes widened. "You built all this?" She asked. "Not alone," he said humbly. "But my team and I built the foundation." He showed her the design lab, the brainstorming room, the virtual demo space. As he talked, she saw the spark of excitement in him, the love for innovation, for progress, for problem solving. "You light up when you talk about this," she said softly. "Do the first. You do." It was the first time anyone had said that to him without an underlying agenda. He walked her to the cafe on the 32nd floor overlooking the city. The sunlight painted a golden outline around her face. The view was breathtaking, but Nicole stole more of his attention. "You know," she said gently, tapping her cup, "I didn't expect your world to be so focused." "I didn't expect yours to be so warm," he replied. They held each other's gaze. Something deepened quietly between them. A few weeks later, Nicole invited him to her mother's home for Sunday dinner. The moment he stepped inside, he was greeted by laughter, the smell of baked chicken and music humming softly from the living room. Marceline ushered him in. Sit. Don't stand around like a guest," Nicole whispered. "Told you she'd adopt you immediately." They ate, laughed, and shared stories. At one point, Marceline asked Landen about his childhood. He spoke cautiously, not wanting to sound privileged or detached. But instead of judgment, she gave him understanding. "You didn't choose how you grew up," she said, "but you get to choose how you live now." Her words settled into him deeply. Later that night, as they left, Nicole asked, "So, was dinner too much?" "Nicole," he said sincerely, "I loved every minute." She smiled, the kind that said she believed him completely. Life moved quickly after that. Dates, walks in the park, late-night calls, inside jokes, shared meals, growing affection. But even the strongest beginnings carry quiet warning signs. One evening, Nicole waited at a small restaurant where they agreed to meet at 7. Landen arrived at 8:30, apologizing breathlessly. "I'm so sorry. A call with investors ran long." "I understand," she said gently, though her eyes held a touch of hurt. He reached out, brushing her hand with his thumb. "I didn't mean to keep you waiting." "I know," she replied, "but you did." They continued dinner, but a tiny space opened between them, small, almost invisible, yet real. On another occasion, Nicole attended one of Landen's professional galas as his guest. She looked stunning, carrying herself with grace. But midway through the night, she noticed the glances from his colleagues, subtle, curious, assessing. She whispered to Landen, "Do they always stare like this?" "They're not staring," he said lightly. But they were. Nicole wasn't uncomfortable, but she was aware that his world watched her differently, aware that she didn't quite blend in. She didn't mention it again, but it stayed with her. To balance the tension, their connection continued to deepen through powerful shared experiences. Landen took her to the jazz lounge he mentioned, the one he rarely shared with others. The dim lighting, gentle saxophone melodies, and intimate setting wrapped them in a quiet cocoon. Nicole closed her eyes, swaying slightly. "This feels like home." He watched her, mesmerized by the way she absorbed the music. "You're beautiful," he whispered. Nicole's cheeks warmed, but she didn't look away. For the first time, he reached for her hand under the table. She didn't pull away. A week later, Nicole invited him to her neighborhood block party. Speakers played old-school tracks, kids danced freely, elders shared stories, and the smell of barbecue drifted through the air. Nicole laughed as she tugged Landen onto the makeshift dance floor. "Come on, billionaire, show us what you've got." "I don't dance," he protested. "You do today." She guided his hands, teaching him steps. At first stiff and awkward, Landen loosened gradually, letting the rhythm move through him. People cheered when he finally caught on. Nicole threw her head back, laughing. "Look at you." He laughed too, really laughed, shaking off layers of stiffness he didn't know he carried. Later, as twilight settled, he watched Nicole glow under the streetlights, surrounded by her community. He whispered, almost to himself, "I could get used to this." Marceline hosted a full barbecue the next weekend. Nicole's cousins played checkers on the porch, neighbors passed plates around, and music gave the evening a heartbeat. Landen learned to season chicken. He learned to joke with people who treated him like a human, not a headline. He learned that simple evenings could carry the most meaning. Nicole leaned against him once, her voice low. "You fit here better than you think." "I feel that," he replied. And he meant it. As weeks passed, their bond matured. There were evenings where they sat close on Nicole's couch, watching movies beneath a soft blanket. Sometimes Landen fell asleep with his head resting gently against her shoulder. Sometimes Nicole traced small circles on his hand while they talked about their fears and dreams. One night, he told her, "I'm not good at letting people see me." She whispered, "I see you." Another night, she confessed, "I don't always feel enough in your world." He held her hand tightly. "You're more than enough." They leaned into each other, sharing quiet moments of trust, learning to be vulnerable without losing themselves. Their connection wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up, learning each other, stepping into new spaces, inviting each other into unfamiliar worlds. Love wasn't something they fell into. It was something they built, piece by piece, moment by moment. And yet, love is never immune to pressure. Even as they grew closer, small misunderstandings waited quietly beneath the surface, shadows neither of them noticed yet. Those shadows would eventually grow. But for now, they were two hearts discovering something rare, something worth fighting for, something real. For weeks, their relationship moved with a steady rhythm. Coffee dates, neighborhood gatherings, late-night conversations, spontaneous dinners, and quiet moments where words weren't needed. But love never grows in perfect conditions. It grows where life tests it, stretches it, challenges it, and slowly, cracks began to appear in places neither of them expected. It started small, a missed call here, a late reply there, then a shift, a subtle one, where their worlds, so different in structure and expectation, began rubbing against each other in ways that created friction neither yet understood. Landen's company had entered its busiest season. Investors demanded updates. A new software launch was approaching. International partners needed meetings at inconvenient hours. Exhaustion tugged at him daily. One evening, he called Nicole while riding in the back of a black car between meetings. "Can we reschedule dinner tonight?" he asked, rubbing his temples. Nicole hesitated on the other end. "We were supposed to eat with my mom tonight. She already cooked." He closed his eyes, guilt twisting in his stomach. "I know, I'm sorry. This launch is consuming everything." She exhaled softly. "I get it. I'll tell her. Tell her I appreciate her," he added quickly, meaning it. "I will," Nicole replied, but her tone had changed. Still kind, still warm, but carrying a small ache he couldn't miss. The call ended. Landen stared at the city through the car window, lights blurring as they sped past. For the first time, he felt something that didn't sit right. This isn't who I want to be with her, he thought. But he didn't know how to change the demands surrounding him. Weeks later, Landen invited her to a corporate rooftop event celebrating a partnership with an international firm. Nicole wore a sleek dress and carried herself with quiet confidence, but the environment was different from the neighborhood joy she thrived in. The conversations felt rehearsed, the smiles polite but distant. Sawyer greeted them first. "Landen, there you are. New partnership, new opportunities, great night." Then he turned to Nicole. "And this must be Nicole. I've heard the team mention you." Nicole smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." Sawyer's eyes scanned her briefly, curious, assessing, polite. Too polite. Soon after, a small circle formed around Landen, colleagues, partners, and donors. Nicole stood beside him, smiling when spoken to, listening as they discussed projections, mergers, and financial forecasts. It wasn't the content that bothered her. It was the dynamic. At one point, a woman in a shimmering dress leaned in close to Landen, laughing at something he said. She barely acknowledged Nicole, offering only a faint nod before turning back to him. Nicole folded her hands, steady but quiet. Landen eventually noticed her silence. "You okay?" he whispered. "I'm fine," she answered gently. "Just taking it in." He squeezed her hand, grateful she was there. But later that night, when they rode home together, Nicole turned toward the window, processing feelings she didn't know how to express yet. It wasn't just Nicole who felt tension in his world. Landen began noticing the looks, the questions, the assumptions colleagues made without understanding anything real about her, or about them as a couple. In a meeting the next week, Miles joked lightly. "So, Landen, bringing Miss Southside to the international event? That's new." It wasn't meant to insult, but it landed wrong. Landen corrected him sharply. "Her name is Nicole, and she belongs anywhere she chooses." Miles blinked, taken aback. "Hey, man, no harm meant." "I know," Landen muttered, loosening his tie. "Just be careful." But as he walked to his office afterward, a heavy truth settled into him. Nicole had embraced his world with curiosity and grace, but his world wasn't embracing her back, and he didn't know how to change the people in it. The argument didn't start loudly. It began with a quiet disappointment. Nicole sat on the couch one evening, waiting for Landen to arrive for their date. They had planned to try a new restaurant near her neighborhood. She dressed nicely, even styled her hair differently, feeling excited to spend uninterrupted time together. But 7 p.m. passed, then 7:30, then 8:15. At 8:40, her doorbell rang. She opened it slowly. Landen stood there, briefcase in hand, tie loosened, face drained. "I'm so sorry," he began. "Everything today ran late. I should have texted, but—" "It's okay," she interrupted gently. "No, it's not. I'm really trying." Nicole stepped aside to let him in. "Come in. Let's talk." He sat down, shoulders slumped. She sat across from him. She waited a moment before speaking. "Landen, I understand your work is demanding. Really, I do. But when we make plans, I look forward to them. I plan my day around them. And when you don't show or show up hours late, it hurts." Her voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't angry. It was vulnerable. He rubbed his forehead. "I know. I hate this too. I just don't know how to balance everything. You're important to me, but so is the company." Nicole swallowed softly. "But where do I fit when everything else pulls so strongly at you?" The silence that followed was thick, not hostile, just full of truth neither had said aloud until now. Landen looked at her with tired eyes. "I'm scared of failing," he whispered. "I fought so hard to build everything. Sometimes I don't know where to put my heart without risking losing something else." Nicole reached out, placing her hand on his knee. "You won't lose me because you're hardworking. You'll lose me if I stop feeling seen." The words were gentle, but they carried weight. A few days later, another moment, added tension neither realized would one day become a turning point. Nicole visited Landen at his office. She brought lunch, homemade chicken pasta, and a warm smile. His assistant let her in. "Landen's in the adjoining room. You can go in." "Thanks," Nicole said, walking toward his office. As she set the lunch bag on his desk, her eyes drifted to his computer screen. A notification sat open, the message partially visible. "Summer, wish I saw you tonight. Missed you." Nicole froze. Her breath caught. Her heart thudded once, hard, in her chest. She wasn't the type to snoop. She wasn't insecure. But there was something deeply unsettling about seeing another woman message her partner like that. A small crack formed inside her, thin, sharp, undeniable. Landen walked in moments later, smiling. "You brought lunch?" But Nicole's expression shifted before she could hide it. "Who's Summer?" she asked quietly. Landen blinked, taken off guard. "A colleague. Why would she say something like that?" Nicole asked, her voice steady but edged with hurt. He walked to the computer, saw the message, and sighed. "Nicole, this is nothing. She's part of the marketing team. She flirts with everyone. It's just her personality. That doesn't make it appropriate." I know, he said quickly. "I'll handle it." But Nicole's heart didn't settle, not because of the message itself, but because of how easily he brushed it aside. This moment didn't break them. It didn't even cause a fight, but it planted something quietly dangerous. Doubt. The doubt wasn't loud. It whispered at inconvenient times. When Landen said he had to stay late, when he didn't answer his phone right away, when he canceled plans abruptly, when she walked into events and saw other women looking at him like opportunities rather than people, she hated the feeling. Hated that she, a confident and grounded woman, now questioned things she once took for granted. Meanwhile, Landen felt the shift but didn't know how to address it. He tried to compensate, bringing her small gifts, planning surprise dinners, but the demands on his time didn't ease, and their worlds tugged them apart inch by inch. Neither blamed the other. Not yet. Not openly. But the space between them grew slowly, like a shadow stretching at dusk. One night, Nicole dreamed she was calling out to Landen, but he couldn't hear her. She woke with a heaviness she couldn't shake. The next morning she walked into their planned brunch feeling uncertain for reasons she couldn't name. He showed up late again. She smiled anyway. He apologized again. They ate quietly. Both felt something shifting beneath the surface. Nothing drastic, nothing explosive, but something real. The kind of shift that doesn't reveal itself until it's too late. When they parted that afternoon, Nicole hugged him tighter than usual. Landen felt the hesitation in her arms, but didn't know what it meant. Years later, looking back, both of them would remember this period clearly, not as the end, but as the moment when the story changed direction. Quietly, slowly, inevitably. Before we proceed, let me pause and say this. If you're still with me, take a second and like this video. It truly helps this channel reach more people who need these stories. And tell me in the comments, have you ever felt something slipping away even while you were trying to hold on to it? Your voice matters here at Mr. Brian Inspires. Alright, let's move forward. The morning was unusually warm for early spring, as Nicole stepped out of the community center with a small paper bag in her hand. Inside was Landen's favorite lunch, grilled chicken pasta with roasted peppers and just enough spice to make him raise an eyebrow when he took the first bite. She made it because she knew he'd had a long week. She made it because she missed him. Because she wanted to do something thoughtful, something gentle to remind him he wasn't alone in the chaos of his career. And truthfully, she just wanted to see him. The sun brushed her skin as she walked toward the bus stop. She debated taking a rideshare, but decided to enjoy the walk. He had been distant lately, never intentionally, but the absences added up. She hoped surprising him would lift his mood. She hoped it would bring them closer again. Nicole stepped onto the bus, sat by the window, and watched the city pass by. Families on sidewalks, street vendors warming pretzels, couples arguing, laughing, living. She thought of how different Landen's world was from hers, yet how deeply she loved the parts of him that peeked through the polished exterior. She tightened her grip on the bag. Today would be good, she told herself. When she arrived at the towering Jennings Global building, she signed in at the front desk and rode the elevator up. A few employees recognized her. Some smiled. Some stared. She ignored the stares and focused on what mattered, the man she loved. His assistant greeted her warmly. "Hi, Nicole. He's in the adjoining office. You can go right in." Nicole smiled. "Thank you." Her heart fluttered as she walked down the quiet hallway, each step echoing softly. She imagined his surprised reaction, the way he'd smile when he saw the lunch she made. Maybe they'd sit together for a few minutes. Maybe they'd reconnect. She reached the glass double doors that led into his private workspace. She heard voices. She paused only briefly. It wasn't unusual for him to finish up a meeting. Then the voices became clearer. A woman's voice. Soft. Light. Too close. Nicole stepped forward instinctively. The moment she reached the open doorway, she froze. Landen stood near the elevator across the hall. And Summer, a woman from his marketing team, someone Nicole had seen only once before, was leaning in far too close. Then, it happened. Summer pressed her lips against his cheek and whispered something into his ear. Nicole's breath left her body. She watched in slow motion as Landen didn't push her away immediately. It wasn't a full kiss, but it wasn't just an innocent gesture either. Not from a woman who had already crossed lines with her messages. Nicole stared, heart pounding, eyes stinging. A wave of disbelief washed over her. She stood completely still, the world tilting around her. Then Summer walked away, casting a fleeting glance at Nicole with an unreadable expression. Landen turned next and saw her. His face drained of color. "Nicole," he said, stunned. What are you doing here?" Nicole felt her fingers go numb around the lunch bag. She swallowed, but her throat burned. "I brought you lunch," she managed softly. Her voice shook. Landen took a step toward her quickly, hands slightly raised. "Nicole, it's not what you think." She forced a tight breath. "Really, because I think I just saw another woman kiss my husband." He winced, physically winced. I didn't kiss her. She just... Landen. Her voice cracked, but her posture remained strong. Do you hear yourself? She didn't kiss the air. She kissed you. I didn't expect her to do that, he insisted, sounding desperate. I was caught off guard. I was literally about to shut her down. I swear to you. But you didn't. Her words weren't loud. They were soft, steady, cutting deeper because of their calm. He looked shattered. His hands hovered helplessly at his sides. Nicole, please. You know I would never betray you. Nicole blinked back tears, her voice trembling despite her strength. Landen, you were already hurting me without touching anyone. But this... She couldn't finish. The elevator dinged behind them. Someone stepped out. Nicole stepped aside instinctively, not wanting eyes on her pain. She whispered, I shouldn't even be here. He reached for her arm gently. Please don't go. Let me explain. She stepped back immediately. Explain what? That a colleague feels comfortable enough to kiss you in your workplace? That she sends you messages you claim mean nothing? That message meant nothing, he repeated. Landen. The message didn't hurt me half as much as watching that just now. His mouth opened, then closed. He had no defense, no good explanation that could erase what she saw. Silence stretched between them, heavy, suffocating, unforgettable. Nicole inhaled shakily. I need air. She turned and walked toward the far end of the hall. Landen followed, but she stopped him with a raised hand. Don't, she whispered. Her eyes glistened, but didn't break. Her chin stayed lifted. It hurt him more than shouting could have. Nicole, please, let's not do this here, he begged. She steadied her breath. Then where, Landen? When? Because every time I try to talk about how lonely I feel, you tell me you're busy. And now I see why. That's not fair, he said, voice shaking. I didn't invite that kiss. You created an environment where she thought she could try, Nicole replied. That's the truth that hurts. Landen's shoulders slumped, as if she had pushed him. She looked at him one last time, long enough to remember their laughter, their dates, the way he held her hand during jazz nights. Then she walked toward the elevator without another word. Her steps were steady, but her body trembled. The lunch bag slipped from her hand and hit the floor, pasta spilling across polished tiles. She didn't turn back to pick it up. The elevator door opened. She stepped inside. Landen ran toward her, panic rising in his chest. Nicole. Her eyes met his as the doors began to close. For the first time since they met, he saw her heart closing. The doors shut. Landen stood there, alone in a hallway that suddenly felt too quiet. He felt something heavy snap inside him, not fully breaking, but cracking under the weight of what he had allowed to happen. And Nicole, she walked out of that building with trembling hands and a heart that felt betrayed, not because he had a full affair, but because the man she loved didn't protect the space he shared with her. A truth echoed as she stepped into the sunlight outside. Disrespect doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers until you can't ignore it anymore. She exhaled a long, painful breath. This moment, this one moment, would become the beginning of an ending neither of them saw coming. Nicole didn't remember the ride home. She didn't remember crossing the street or unlocking her apartment door, or the moment she collapsed onto the couch with her hands pressed against her face. Everything after the elevator door closed felt muffled, distant, as though her mind was protecting her from absorbing the full weight of what she saw. A kiss, not a romantic one, not a moment of passion, but a violation of trust all the same, a violation that revealed something deeper. Landen had stopped protecting their relationship long before that moment. She sat in silence, breathing shakily, the air thick around her. She could still see it replaying in her mind, Summer leaning in, Landen not stepping back fast enough, the comfortable proximity, the unspoken familiarity. Nicole shut her eyes tightly. The hurt pulsed. She wasn't furious. She wasn't dramatic. She was wounded, a kind of wound that sits deep in the chest, pulsing slowly with every breath. She didn't know how long she sat there before her phone buzzed. Landen. Then again. And again. Finally, a text. Please open the door. I'm outside. Her head lifted. He came here. Her heart tightened. Nicole walked slowly toward the door, wiped her face, steadied her breathing, and opened it. Landen stood there with eyes full of panic, guilt, and something else, fear. He stepped inside the moment she moved aside. Nicole, he breathed. Please, we need to talk. She didn't speak, didn't move toward him, didn't soften. The silence unsettled him. He closed the door gently and faced her. I didn't want that to happen. I didn't expect it. I need you to believe that. Nicole crossed her arms, not in anger but in self-protection. You didn't expect it? Landen. She kissed you like it wasn't the first time. He flinched. It was the first time, but she felt comfortable enough to try. He swallowed hard. I know that looks bad. I know it does. But nothing happened between us. I didn't touch her. I didn't invite anything. You didn't stop her either. Her voice broke slightly. She hated that. Nicole. I froze. You froze, she repeated, barely above a whisper. Landen, you freeze when someone tries to invade our marriage? He took a step toward her, but she stepped back. Please, don't walk away from me, he said quietly. I'm not walking away, she replied. I'm standing right here. Her throat tightened. I need to understand how we got here. He ran a hand through his hair. I messed up. I've been stressed, distracted, overwhelmed. That's not an excuse. I'm not trying to make excuses. His voice cracked. I'm just trying to explain. I didn't do anything with her. I didn't betray you that way. Nicole blinked slowly, tears gathering but not falling. Landen, the betrayal isn't the kiss. It's everything before it. He stared, confused. What do you mean? She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. The constant lateness, the canceling, the unspoken distance growing between us while I'm trying so hard to hold on. The way you let other people's opinions matter more than how I felt walking into your world. He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand gently. I'm not blaming you for working hard. But when did I become the last thing on your list? When did being with me become something you squeezed into your schedule when nothing else was pressing? His shoulders slumped as her words hit him with force. I have always loved you, he whispered. I never meant to hurt you. I know, she said softly. That's why this hurts so much. She turned away, wiping her cheek. Landen stepped forward again. Nicole, please look at me. She did, but not with the eyes of the woman who used to look at him with unwavering trust. Something was fractured now, something she wasn't sure could be repaired. Can you just tell me what you want? He asked, sounding weary. How do I fix this? What do you need? She shook her head slowly. Landen, you're asking me for solutions in the middle of a wound you caused. He felt the air leave his lungs. Nicole sank down onto the couch, elbows on her knees, face in her hands. He sat across from her on the coffee table, his knees nearly touching hers. Talk to me, he whispered. She lifted her head, eyes red but calm. I feel invisible in your world. His breath caught. Nicole continued with a trembling voice. I walk beside you, but I don't feel beside you. I feel like an accessory, something that looks nice in photos. Something people glance at but don't truly see. That's not how I see you, he said immediately. She nodded. I know. But that's how your world sees me, and you never challenge it. That pierced him. She looked directly into his eyes. Landen, I have begged silently to feel chosen, not by your words, not by your gifts, but by your presence. He swallowed painfully. I didn't know it was this deep, he whispered. You didn't want to know, she corrected gently. You kept telling yourself everything was fine because you didn't want to face the truth. His breath shook. I've been trying, Nicole. No, she said softly. You've been trying to hold on to everything, and in doing so, you lost me without even realizing it. Her voice carried no anger, just grief. He dropped his head into his hands. Please don't say that. Nicole got up slowly, walking toward the bedroom. For a moment, he stayed on the couch, unsure whether to follow. But when she didn't return, he stood and walked to the doorway. She was packing. A small suitcase lay open on the bed. Her hands trembled as she folded clothes. Nicole, no, he whispered. Please don't do this. She didn't turn around. I don't know how to stay right now. He stepped forward. Talk to me. Fight with me. Don't just leave. She closed her eyes. I've been fighting for us alone. That's not true. She faced him then, tears streaming despite her effort to stay composed. When was the last time you held my hand without checking your phone? When was the last time you asked if I was okay? When was the last time we laughed without me feeling like I was competing with your schedule? He shook his head, tears forming. Nicole, please. She whispered, I love you, Landen, but love shouldn't feel this lonely. He reached for her, but she stepped back. Her hands shook harder as she zipped the suitcase. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. "I need air. I need space. I need to hear myself think again." He stared at her like a man losing the ground beneath him. They stood a few feet apart, but it felt like miles. "Please don't go," he begged again, voice breaking. Nicole brushed past him gently, her presence slipping from his grasp like smoke. She walked to the front door, opened it halfway, paused, and whispered without turning back, "I'm sorry, but I can't stay in a place where I'm losing myself." The door closed softly behind her, but that wasn't the final moment. Hours later, long past midnight, Nicole returned quietly with her mother's car. She didn't wake Landen. She didn't want another argument. She moved through the apartment gently, collecting only the essentials she couldn't leave behind. Her heart felt heavy but resolved. She stepped into the bedroom once more, standing there in the dim light. Landen was asleep on the couch, exhausted from crying, waiting, hoping she would walk back in and say they could fix this. He didn't hear her quiet footsteps as she walked to his side of the bed. Nicole took a sheet of paper from her purse. Her hand trembled as she wrote a note, short, heavy, honest. She placed it on his pillow. Her eyes lingered on it for a long time. Then she lifted her suitcase and walked out as dawn crept slowly across the city. When he woke up, the apartment felt wrong. Too quiet, too still, too hollow. He stood and walked toward the bedroom instinctively. Then he saw the note. His breath caught. He unfolded the paper slowly, his hands shaking, eyes scanning the words she left him. And then, his entire body broke. Not loudly, not violently. He sank to the floor beside the bed, one hand gripping the edge of the mattress, chest trembling, breath catching over and over. Tears poured silently. The realization hit him with a force stronger than anything he'd ever experienced. Nicole wasn't just gone for the night. She wasn't taking a break. She had left, and he had driven her to it. He pressed the note to his chest and whispered into the empty room, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But apologies spoken in empty rooms reach no one. And for the first time in his adult life, Landen Jennings, a billionaire, a visionary, a man who built an empire, felt powerless. Because he had lost the one person who gave meaning to his success. And now, he didn't know if he'd ever get her back. The morning after Nicole left felt unreal. Landen woke on the floor beside the bed, stiff from sleeping in a strange position, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes swollen. For a moment, he didn't move. He didn't breathe. He didn't even think. He just lay there, staring at the corner of the room as dawn light crept slowly across the hardwood floor. Then the ache returned, a heavy, crushing ache. He rolled slightly, knees pulling toward his chest as he pressed the note she left tightly against his heart. He read it again, even though he didn't need to. He had memorized it the moment he saw it. "You were never really listening." The words pierced him more deeply the second time, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face with both hands. The apartment felt hollow. Every object seemed out of place. The silence felt sharp. He could still smell her perfume faintly in the air, soft, warm, familiar. It made his chest tighten painfully. After several minutes, he forced himself to stand. His body moved automatically, not because he knew what he was doing, but because he didn't know what else to do with himself. He walked into the kitchen. Nicole's mug sat beside the sink, still carrying the faint stain from yesterday's coffee. He lifted it, tracing the rim with his thumb. Then his hand shook, and he set it back down quickly before he dropped it. He couldn't stay here. He grabbed his coat and walked out the door. At the office, people greeted him with their usual politeness. He barely heard them. He walked through the lobby, past the elevators, past the glass-walled meeting rooms, past the office where he'd last seen Nicole's hurt expression. He couldn't look in that direction without feeling something inside him twist. His assistant approached him nervously. "Morning, Mr. Jennings. You have the 10 a.m. briefing. He cut her off gently. "Not today. Cancel everything." She blinked. "Everything?" "Yes." She hesitated. "Should I tell the executives? Tell them something came up?" She nodded slowly. She'd known him for years, but she had never seen him look like this, drained, unfocused, unsettled. Landen walked to his office, closed the door, and sat behind his desk. He opened his laptop, then closed it again. Nothing mattered. Numbers didn't matter. Contracts didn't matter. Success didn't matter. Nicole mattered. And she was gone. He leaned back in his chair, fingers pressed against his forehead. His mind replayed every moment from the past months. Her smile at the gala, her warmth at community events, her vulnerability during their late-night talks, her disappointment when he arrived late, her pain when she saw Summer kissing him, her quiet strength as she walked away. He whispered into the empty room, "What did I do?" He knew the answer. He didn't show up when it mattered. He didn't listen when she needed him. He didn't protect a relationship he claimed to value. He had blamed his schedule, his responsibilities, his stress, his world. But deep down, he knew he had taken her presence for granted. He had assumed she would always understand, always stay, always forgive. He had forgotten something. People break when they feel invisible. Later that afternoon, Miles walked into his office unannounced. "Hey, we need your signature on..." He stopped mid-sentence. Landen sat motionless, staring at the floor, hands loosely clasped, breathing shallowly. "You okay, man?" Miles asked, eyes narrowing. Landen didn't answer. Miles pulled up a chair and sat across from him. "Talk to me." Silence. After a long moment, Landen murmured, "Nicole left." Miles exhaled slowly. "Oh, damn." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I knew things were rough, but I didn't think..." "She's gone," Landen said quietly. "She's really gone. Do you know where she went?" He shook his head. "And you didn't go after her?" "I tried," he whispered. "I begged. She still left." Miles sat back, absorbing it. "Look, couples fight. You two can still..." "No," Landen interrupted, voice barely steady. "You didn't see her face. She was done." Before Miles could respond, Sawyer appeared at the doorway. "Everything okay?" Miles gestured subtly. Sawyer entered. "Landen, you look terrible." "That's helpful," Landen muttered weakly. Sawyer sat beside Miles. "Tell us what happened." Landen hesitated. Then he said quietly, "She saw Summer kiss me." Miles's eyes widened. "That's bad." Sawyer grimaced. "Did you kiss her back?" "No, but I didn't stop it fast enough." "And Nicole left because of that?" Sawyer asked carefully. Landen shook his head. "No, she left because I wasn't present, because I made her feel alone. The kiss was just the final blow." Sawyer sighed. "You love her. Anyone can see that." Landen's eyes glistened. "I do. I didn't realize how much until..." He looked away. "Until she wasn't here anymore." Neither friend knew what to say. There are moments where comfort feels meaningless, and this was one of them. After work, Landen didn't go home immediately. He drove aimlessly through the city, past the jazz lounge they loved, past her mother's street, past the block where they danced together during the community party. Eventually, he ended up at the riverfront. He parked, rested his head against the steering wheel, and breathed in cold air. His phone buzzed. A memory notification. He opened it. A video played, shot months ago, Nicole sitting in his living room, laughing so hard she leaned forward, covering her face with both hands. He had told her a joke that wasn't even funny, but her laugh made him laugh until his stomach hurt. He played the video again, and again. Then another memory surfaced, Nicole teaching him how to dance in her mother's backyard. He stepped on her foot twice, and she shoved him playfully, saying, "Baby, you were going to break my shoes and my spirit if you keep stepping like that." He remembered how she'd grabbed his hands after that and said, "Just follow my rhythm." He hadn't realized then how symbolic that was. She was asking him to meet her halfway, to share the pace, not control it. He hadn't listened. Another video, her humming in his kitchen while cooking. The soft smile she gave him when she caught him recording. His chest tightened painfully. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I ruined this," he whispered. But it wasn't just guilt. It was grief. A grief that settled in his bones. Over the next few weeks, friends tried to pull him back into routine. Sawyer arranged a gathering. Miles suggested a night out. Others tried setting him up with women they thought would help him move on. He went to one dinner. One. The woman, polished, confident, beautiful, talked about her career, about travel, about interests they had in common. But she wasn't Nicole. Her laughter wasn't Nicole's. Her presence didn't calm him the way Nicole's had. Her eyes didn't hold the same warmth. Halfway through the dinner, Landen realized he wasn't listening. He wasn't present. He wasn't ready. He apologized politely, paid the bill, and left. He sat in his car afterward, feeling emptier than before. Moving on wasn't the answer, not because he didn't want happiness, but because he hadn't healed. One night, unable to sleep, Landen drove to visit Preston Jennings. Preston's home smelled of old books and wooden furniture. The retired surgeon sat in his armchair, glasses sliding down his nose as he looked up from a journal. "You look awful," Preston said. "Sit." Landen sank into the chair opposite him. "What happened?" Preston asked. "Nicole left," Landen whispered. Preston studied him for a moment. "Why?" Landen's voice cracked. "Because I was so focused on building a future that I didn't see our present falling apart." Preston nodded slowly. "Love isn't built the same way as a company. You can't scale it with more meetings or fix it with strategy. I know that now. Do you?" Preston leaned forward. "Or are you just afraid of being alone?" Landen swallowed. "I'm afraid of losing the only person who made me feel grounded." Preston exhaled deeply. "Let me tell you something. Relationships fail in silence long before they fail in action. She didn't leave because of that kiss. She left because you stopped showing up for her. I didn't mean to." "Intentions don't shield people from pain," Preston said gently. "Presence does." Landen felt his throat tighten. "Is it too late?" Preston looked at him with compassionate eyes. "The question isn't whether it's too late. The question is whether you're willing to become the man who deserves another chance, if life gives you one." Landen closed his eyes. Preston continued, "Loving someone means giving them the right to leave when they are hurting, and hoping, not demanding, that they choose to return when they're ready." Landen whispered, "What if she never comes back?" Preston replied softly, "Then you honor what she taught you, and you grow." Driving home, Preston's words echoed in his mind. Nicole hadn't left because of a kiss. She left because she lost herself trying to stay with him. And he didn't notice. He had treated love like a luxury he would indulge when time permitted. He had convinced himself that success could justify absence. He had believed he could build a life first and nurture the relationship second. But Nicole had needed him now. Not someday. Not when the company stabilized. Not when things got easier. Now. He thought of all the times she waited at restaurants. All the evenings she sat alone on the couch. All the mornings she woke up without hearing him say good morning. All the moments when she looked at him with a quiet longing he didn't understand until it was too late. He whispered into the night air, "I'm sorry, Nicole." The city lights blurred behind the windshield as his vision swelled with tears. This was the price of not listening. This was the cost of silence. This was what happened when pride disguised itself as ambition. He had everything, and now he had nothing. But life was not done teaching him yet, and he had no idea that the next chapter of their story would come crashing into his world unexpectedly, changing everything he believed was lost. Before we continue forward, let's linger here together briefly. If this story is touching something deep in you, if you've ever lost someone because you didn't realize how much they mattered until later, tap the like button. It helps this story reach someone else who needs it. And comment, "I'm still here," so I know you're watching with us. All right, let's keep going. The first week after leaving Landen felt like moving through fog. Nicole stayed at her mother Marceline's house, a place filled with the familiar warmth she grew up in, but the comfort didn't immediately ease the heaviness inside her. Her body felt lighter without the emotional pressure of trying to hold her marriage together, yet heavier with an ache she didn't know how to name. Some mornings she woke before sunrise, sitting on the edge of the bed staring at the floor, wondering how the life she built with Landen had unraveled so quickly. Other mornings she pulled the blanket over her head, praying for the strength to get through the day without crying. Marceline didn't ask what happened right away. She simply let her daughter exist, as broken or as quiet as she needed to be, making tea, cooking meals, checking in softly with, "Baby, you need anything? And I'm right here if you want to talk." Nicole appreciated the space, but silence eventually brings buried truths to the surface. It began with nausea, not a quiet kind, the kind that woke her abruptly at 5 a.m., sending her rushing to the bathroom. She knelt over the toilet, gasping, clutching her stomach as waves rolled through her. After a minute, she sat back against the wall, wiping her mouth. "Maybe it's stress," she whispered to herself. "Maybe it's heartbreak." She splashed cold water on her face. Her reflection stared back at her, eyes tired, hair messy, skin pale. She didn't feel like herself. She didn't feel grounded. She didn't feel okay. She brushed her teeth and went back to bed, but sleep never came. By late morning, she tried eating toast. The nausea hit again, then again, the next day. And the next. On the fourth day, she sat on the edge of the bathtub, trembling as she stared at the unopened pregnancy test on the counter. She had bought it reluctantly, almost angrily, frustrated that her body was adding confusion to already overwhelming pain. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Lord, please just don't let this be what I think it is. I'm not ready." But when she opened her eyes, the test was still sitting there, a truth waiting for her to face it. She reached for it slowly, almost with reverence, as though touching something that might change her life forever. With trembling hands, she followed the instructions and waited. Those 2 minutes felt longer than her entire marriage. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest. Her palms were clammy. She kept whispering to herself, "It's okay. It's okay. Whatever it is, you'll handle it." Finally, she lifted the stick. Her breath caught. 2 lines. Bold. Clear. Undeniable. Nicole's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Her knees gave out, and she slid to the floor, back pressed against the cabinet. Tears welled without warning. She wasn't sure if she was crying from fear or shock or heartbreak, or all three combined. Her mind raced. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with Landen's child. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. The room felt too small, too quiet, too full of pressure. The tears fell faster. "What am I going to do?" she whispered. The answer wasn't clear. Nothing felt clear. Her life had already been shaking, and now her foundation cracked open entirely. She tried to breathe, but her chest tightened. She pictured Landen's face, his smile, his exhaustion, his regret, the desperation when he begged her not to leave. She remembered the way he looked at her when they danced in her mother's backyard, the way he leaned into her during quiet movie nights, the way he whispered, "I love you" after long days, and the way her heart broke watching him with Summer. Nicole pressed her forehead into her knees. The pregnancy didn't erase the betrayal. It didn't erase the loneliness she carried in the marriage. It didn't erase the emotional distance that pushed her out the door. But it did complicate everything. She sat there for nearly 30 minutes, trembling, trying to process the impossible shift in her life. Tears trickled down her cheeks slowly, silently. Eventually she whispered, "Why now? Why when we're not okay? Why when I've finally left?" Her stomach twisted, not from nausea this time, but from the weight of a future she could not fully picture. For the next hour she lay curled up on her bed, thinking through every possible scenario. Should I tell him? Would he even care? Would he just think I'm using this pregnancy to pull him back? But one thought cemented itself above all others. He didn't protect us when we were together. How can I trust him now? She imagined him trying to take control of the situation. She imagined him pushing her toward decisions she didn't want to make. She imagined him saying all the right things but doing none of them. She imagined feeling alone again, this time while carrying his child. Her chest tightened painfully. "No," she whispered through tears. "I can't go back into that. Not right now. Not while her heart was still bleeding. Not when she needed stability more than promises." She didn't decide out of revenge. She decided out of self-preservation. "I have to do this my way," she whispered. "I have to protect myself and this baby." But she was wrong about one thing. It wasn't a baby. It was 2. She just didn't know yet. Nicole emerged from the bathroom eventually, eyes swollen, hair messy, the pregnancy test clenched in her hand. Marceline was sitting at the kitchen table sorting through some mail, but she lifted her head the moment Nicole entered. "Baby, what's wrong?" Nicole tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She lifted the test with a trembling hand. Marceline stood up so fast her chair slid back. "Oh my Lord," she whispered, walking quickly toward her daughter. She cupped Nicole's face gently. Come here, baby girl." Nicole finally broke, collapsing into her mother's arms. Marceline held her tightly, rubbing her back, whispering, "You're not alone. You're not alone. Breathe, baby, breathe." Nicole sobbed into her mother's shoulder, clinging to her as fear, grief, and confusion poured out in waves. Marceline didn't rush her, didn't ask questions, didn't judge. She simply held her daughter the way she had when Nicole was a child scared of thunderstorms. When Nicole finally pulled back, wiping her face, Marceline guided her to the table, holding both her hands. "How far along do you think you are?" Marceline asked gently. Nicole shook her head. I'm not sure. Maybe a few weeks." And Landen, does he know? Nicole's entire body stiffened. No, she whispered. And I don't want him to. Marceline studied her daughter's face, reading the depth of pain there. She understood. You don't owe him anything right now, she said softly. Not while you're hurting. Not while your heart is still raw. Nicole nodded, tears welling again. I'm scared, Mama. Marceline squeezed her hand. Of course you are. Being a mother is scary even when everything's perfect. And your situation? It's complicated, but you're strong, Nicole. Stronger than you think. Nicole breathed shakily. I thought leaving him was the hardest thing I'd ever do. But this... She placed a trembling hand on her stomach. This is something else. Marceline leaned closer. Baby, listen to me. You are not doing this alone. I'm here. Your community is here. And God isn't surprised by this. He didn't bring you this far to abandon you now. Nicole closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her heart like a balm over a fresh wound. Later that evening, Nicole called her best friend Imani and invited her over. Imani arrived within 20 minutes, wearing sweatpants, a bonnet, and carrying a bag of snacks. The moment she walked in, she took one look at Nicole's face and said, "Oh no. What happened? Do I need to fight somebody? Who do I need to fight? Say the name." Nicole let out a pitiful laugh through her tears. "Girl, nobody needs fighting." Imani dropped onto the couch beside her. "Okay, talk to me. What's going on?" Nicole hesitated before whispering, "Imani, I'm pregnant." Imani blinked, then blinked again. Then she let out a gasp. "What? Oh my, Nicole, are you serious?" Nicole nodded, and fresh tears spilled. Imani's expression softened immediately. She pulled Nicole into a hug. "Oh, honey. Okay, we're gonna breathe through this. One step at a time." Nicole clung to her, whispering, "I don't know what to do." "Well, first," Imani said calmly, "we're gonna stop crying because you're dehydrated and your face is all puffy." Nicole laughed weakly. "Second," Imani continued, "you're gonna decide what you want, not what Landen wants, not what society wants, not what anybody else thinks. What you want." Nicole wiped her eyes. "I want to feel safe." "You will," Imani promised. They spent the next 2 hours talking through small details, budgeting, health needs, prenatal vitamins, future planning, but never in a rushed or overwhelming way. At one point, Imani touched Nicole's stomach gently and whispered, "Hey baby, it's your auntie. I'm gonna spoil you rotten." Nicole's heart squeezed painfully. She wasn't alone after all. As the night went on, Imani pulled out a notebook. "What's that?" Nicole asked. "Our nursery blueprint, obviously." Nicole stared at her. "Imani, I don't even know what's happening yet." "Girl, listen. When life hits hard, you prepare in small ways. A nursery board is a small way." Nicole laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "You're ridiculous." "Ridiculously supportive," Imani corrected. Marceline joined them occasionally with sandwiches or tea, smiling softly at the way the two women worked together. Nicole realized something important that night. She didn't have a husband at her side. She didn't have the life she pictured. But what she did have was community, and sometimes that was more powerful than any romantic partnership. Over the next week, word traveled quietly among the women in Nicole's neighborhood, not gossip, but concern. The aunties at church pulled her aside, rubbing her shoulder or pressing her hands gently as they prayed with her. "We're here for you, baby. You're covered. You don't worry about a thing." At the corner store, an older neighbor hugged her tightly. "I raised 4 babies without their daddy in the picture. You're gonna be all right." The women in the neighborhood brought homemade meals, soups, casseroles, cornbread, not because she asked, but because that was how her community showed love. In moments when she felt overwhelmed, this quiet circle of care gathered around her without question. Nicole had walked away from one world, but she had returned to another that held her close. Late one night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, Nicole sat on her bed holding the pregnancy test again. She stared at the little lines that had changed everything. She placed a hand on her stomach, whispering into the darkness, "I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to try. I'm going to give you everything I have." A tear slipped down her cheek. She inhaled deeply and whispered again, this time with more steadiness, "I left because I had to protect my heart. Now, I have to protect you too." She didn't know the future. She didn't know whether Landen would ever learn the truth. She didn't know how she'd balance the emotional weight of pregnancy with the heartbreak she still carried. But she did know one thing. Strength wasn't always loud or visible. Sometimes strength meant choosing yourself when everything inside you wanted to hold on. Nicole curled under the blanket, cradling her stomach gently as sleep finally settled over her. Tomorrow she would begin navigating motherhood. Tonight she simply let herself feel. The weeks after Nicole learned she was pregnant unfolded in a slow emotional blur. Life did not suddenly feel easier. If anything, everything became heavier. But the heaviness was different now. Not the crushing weight of heartbreak. Not the suffocating ache of loneliness inside a marriage that no longer felt like love. This weight carried purpose. It carried a heartbeat. It carried 2 heartbeats, though Nicole didn't know that yet. Most mornings began with nausea, exhaustion, or unexpected tears. Some afternoons brought bursts of energy, brief sparks of hope that reminded her she was creating life. And in between, there was a steady rhythm of community hands supporting her, guiding her, lifting her gently toward a new version of herself. One Saturday morning, Nicole woke to voices whispering excitedly downstairs. She rubbed her eyes, stretched, and walked into the living room wearing a loose t-shirt and sweatpants. The moment she turned the corner, she stopped in place. Her mother's living room, which normally held mismatched furniture and old family photos, looked transformed. Pink and blue balloons floated above the couch. A banner hung across the window with the words, "We love you," Nicole written in glitter. Plates of food covered. The dining table, mac and cheese, baked chicken, cornbread, collard greens, fruit bowls, and desserts of every kind. Nicole blinked. What is all this? Marceline smiled as she adjusted a tray. Baby, it's a shower. A baby shower? Nicole asked, stunned. Already? Imani appeared from behind a stack of gift bags. Girl, if we waited until the last minute you'd be crying, asking why your people didn't love you. Nicole laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in days. Women from the neighborhood began trickling in. Her old Sunday school teacher brought diapers. A neighbor from down the block carried a handmade blanket. The choir director set a gift basket on the dining table filled with baby lotion, wipes, and tiny socks. Nicole stood there, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say, she whispered. One of the older ladies patted her shoulder. Say thank you, baby, and let us love on you. And she did. They prayed over her. They hugged her. They told her stories about their own pregnancies. Funny ones, painful ones, unexpected ones. They reminded her she wasn't alone. Her community wrapped around her like a warm quilt stitched from generations of resilience. Nicole felt herself relaxing into it, letting the unexpected joy soften wounds she still carried from her marriage. Even though she wasn't ready to trust fully again, she wasn't afraid of being cared for. At one point, as she unwrapped a small pair of booties crocheted by an elderly neighbor, Nicole's hands trembled slightly. She pressed the fabric to her lips. I'm going to be a mother, she whispered, her voice catching. Imani leaned over, rubbing her back. Yes, you are. And you're going to be a great one. Nicole smiled through tears, nodding, believing it just a little more each time someone said it. The church Nicole grew up in had always been a second home. Even during the years she drifted away, due to work, life, or emotional exhaustion, it remained a place where she felt grounded. After her pregnancy news quietly spread, the church community responded like a family. Miss Trina from the choir dropped off casseroles every few days, insisting Nicole keep her feet up and stop trying to be superwoman. Deacon Harris prayed for her after Sunday's service, his deep voice echoing comfort. Women from the church's mothers group visited with baskets of fruit, devotionals, and affirmations. You're going to be okay. God's got you. You're stronger than you feel right now. Each visit felt like a balm soothing a bruise on her heart. Even the pastor's wife hugged Nicole longer than usual one morning and said softly, walking away from something that hurts you takes courage. Raising a child takes strength, but healing, that takes grace. And you have all three. Nicole went home that day feeling lighter. Despite the emotional challenges and physical struggles of early pregnancy, Nicole kept working with the youth mentorship program at the community center. She needed structure. She needed purpose. She needed something outside herself to hold on to. When she walked into the center, the kids greeted her with the same energy they always had, laughing, teasing, asking questions nonstop. Miss Nicole, look what I drew. Miss Nicole, can you help me with this math? Miss Nicole, you look tired. You okay? Their innocence touched her in a way she didn't expect. Being around them reminded her that life continued even in the middle of personal storms. Children didn't pause their needs because adults were hurting. They still needed love, guidance, stability, and she found comfort in giving it. One afternoon, as she sat on the bleachers while the kids practiced basketball, she felt a small nudge against her stomach, a soft flutter. She froze. Was that? She placed a hand on her belly gently, eyes widening. A second flutter came moments later. She inhaled sharply. "Hi, little one," she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but awe. For the first time since learning she was pregnant, she felt a moment of pure connection to the life growing inside her. That night, Nicole lay in bed, placing both hands over her stomach. The room was dark, except for the soft glow from a lamp in the hallway. "Hey, baby," she whispered softly. "It's your mama." The words felt surreal. She paused, trying to control her tears. "I'm scared. I hope you can't feel it, but I am. I'm scared of doing this wrong, scared of not being enough." She swallowed hard. "But I promise you something," she continued, voice trembling. "I'm going to do everything I can to love you the way you deserve. And even if some days are hard, I won't give up. I won't ever walk away from you." She rubbed her belly slowly, imagining a tiny heartbeat tucked deep inside. "And I know you didn't ask to come into a messy situation, but you're not a mistake. You're not a burden. You're the new beginning I didn't know I needed." Her voice cracked. She let out a shaky laugh. "You're already helping me heal, you know that? I didn't think I had anything left to give, but here you are, teaching me to breathe again." She placed her head on the pillow, whispering softly until she drifted to sleep. As the pregnancy months unfolded, Nicole moved in cycles. Some days brought peace. Some days brought strength. Some days reopened wounds she thought had closed. There were nights she sat on the couch staring at the ceiling, asking herself if she had done the right thing by leaving Landen. But the more distance she gained, the clearer the truth became. She had left because she was losing herself. She had left because staying meant shrinking. She had left because love without nourishment becomes ache. She remembered trying so hard to adapt to his world, trying so hard not to complain, trying so hard to hold everything together, even when her heart felt like it was splintering. She whispered to herself one evening, "I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I started loving myself." It wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. But clarity didn't mean she didn't miss him. Some nights, when the house was quiet and Marceline and Imani were asleep, Nicole sat alone on her bed scrolling through her phone. She knew she shouldn't press play. She knew hearing his voice would break something open again. But she pressed it anyway. "Hey, sweetheart, just checking in. I know you're asleep, but I wanted to say good night." Her chest tightened. Next voicemail. "I'm on my way home. Traffic is crazy. Can't wait to see you." Her eyes stung. Next. "Nicole, I'm sorry for being late again. I'll make it up to you, I promise." A tear slipped down her cheek. She held the phone against her chest and whispered, "Why couldn't you show up when it mattered?" Her sobs were quiet, small, trembling, almost apologetic, but they came from a deep place, a place that still mourned what could have been. She cried until she could breathe evenly again, wiping her cheeks with the sleeve of her shirt. Then she placed the phone face down and whispered to her unborn child, "We're going to build something new, something peaceful." Nicole didn't heal quickly. Healing rarely happens in straight lines, but she healed honestly, with rest, with support, with faith, with small steps, with deep breaths. Her community wrapped around her in ways she didn't expect. Women came to braid her hair when she felt too tired. A neighbor dropped off maternity clothes she no longer needed. Teenagers from her youth group painted inspirational quotes on canvases for the nursery. Church members prayed over her belly, hands warm and gentle. Marceline cooked her favorite meals, filling the house with comforting smells. Imani stayed up late helping her research prenatal vitamins, baby monitors, and sleep schedules. They didn't judge her. They didn't question her. They loved her. And slowly, the fractures in her heart began knitting themselves back together, not perfectly, not without scars, but strongly. One afternoon, Nicole stood in the small room that would become the nursery. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the soft yellow paint she and Imani had put up a few days earlier. She placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "I'm doing this. We're doing this." In that moment, she wasn't the woman who walked away from her marriage. She wasn't the woman who cried in the bathroom holding a pregnancy test. She wasn't the woman clinging to old voicemails. She was a mother, and she felt strong. Nicole's life settled into a gentle rhythm as her pregnancy progressed, each day a mixture of calm moments, quiet reflection, and the steady presence of a community that embraced her. But far across the city, in a world made of polished glass, steel elevator doors, and high-pressure boardrooms, Landen moved through his own transformation. Two people, living separate lives, two hearts, healing in different ways, two paths unknowingly inching back toward each other. Their journeys were different, but strangely aligned, like two melodies rising at opposite ends of a song, preparing to meet in harmony, even though neither of them could hear the music yet. The first month after Nicole left felt like punishment. Not the dramatic kind, quiet punishment. The kind that clings to your chest in the middle of the night when you're staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake you ever made. Landen didn't sleep much. He stopped ordering takeout, stopped listening to jazz, stopped going to his favorite rooftop lounge. Instead, he walked. Most nights, he left his penthouse after midnight, hands shoved deep in his pockets, jacket pulled tight against the cold. He walked along the river path, past the streetlights, past the benches facing the water, past the joggers who still ran at night. The city buzzed behind him, alive with taxis, neon lights, and nightlife energy, but he barely heard any of it. His footsteps were steady but heavy. The river was the only place he felt like he could breathe. Watching the water move felt grounding. Watching the city lights reflect on it reminded him that life kept going, even when he didn't know how to. He thought about Nicole constantly. Not in the obsessive way he feared he might, but in the quiet, aching way of a man who finally realized what he had lost. Not because someone took it from him, but because he didn't protect it in the first place. He remembered the way she'd laugh when something truly amused her, the way she'd touch his arm gently when she was proud of him, the way she'd ask, "How was your day really?" and actually mean it. He whispered to the water more than once, "I'm sorry," as though the river could carry his words to wherever Nicole was. Sometimes he replayed the moment she walked away from him. Other nights, he replayed the moment he failed her. Most nights, he replayed both. He didn't know she was pregnant yet. He didn't know his life was about to change again. All he knew was this. For the first time in years, Landen Jennings felt small. In an attempt to regain control of his life, Landen threw himself into work. His company relied on him, and his team expected steadiness, vision, composure. But something in him had shifted. He showed up to meetings physically, but mentally he drifted. His mind wandered to the nights he'd ignored Nicole's texts, the dinners he canceled, the promises he made but never kept. He'd stare at spreadsheets, seeing numbers, but thinking of her smile. He'd sit at his desk, then realize he'd been holding the same pen for 10 minutes without writing anything. He'd try to focus on software development reports, but the sound of someone laughing down the hall reminded him painfully of her. Sawyer eventually pulled him aside. "Man, you good?" Landen forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But Sawyer wasn't fooled. "You ain't tired, bro. You're hollow." Landen looked away. Sawyer placed a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever you lost, I hope you find it again." The words stuck with him, because deep down, he knew exactly what he had lost. His friends encouraged him to move on, as though heartbreak followed a schedule, as though healing could be done quickly if you just distracted yourself long enough. Eventually, Landen agreed to go on a date, reluctantly. A coworker invited him to a rooftop lounge, insisting he needed fresh company. The woman he met was beautiful, intelligent, and kind. But Landen barely made it through the night. She laughed once, and he flinched because it wasn't Nicole's laugh. She touched her hair, and he winced because it wasn't Nicole's gesture. She asked what he did for a living, and he realized he had no desire to impress anyone ever again. Halfway through the evening, she leaned forward gently. "You seem distracted," she said kindly. Landen sighed. "I'm sorry. You don't deserve it. You're great." "I'm just not ready." She nodded, understanding. Some people leave footprints. They don't fade fast. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, she did." He left early, walked home under cold city air, and realized he wasn't ready to be in anyone else's world. Not when his heart was still tied to the woman who taught him how to dance in the kitchen, who introduced him to her neighborhood block parties, who made him laugh until he couldn't breathe. Nicole wasn't a habit he could break. She was a loss he had to learn from. One night, feeling more lost than usual, Landen found himself standing outside his father's home, the same house he grew up in. Preston invited him inside with a warm, familiar smile. "What's going on, son?" Landen sat on the old leather couch, staring at the floor. "I messed everything up." Preston poured a drink, then sat beside him. "I figured something serious happened. You've been distant." Landen exhaled shakily. "Nicole's gone, and it's my fault." Preston's face softened. "Tell me what happened." And Landen did. Not the polished version he told his friends, not the half-truths he told himself, but everything. He talked for almost an hour about the missed dinners, the late meetings, the night she caught him leaving the building with someone else, even the guilt he didn't want to admit he carried. When he finished, Preston said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Son," Preston began softly, "when a woman stops feeling seen, her heart doesn't leave overnight. It leaves slowly, piece by piece, until the day she finally walks away." Landen swallowed painfully. "And you?" Preston asked. "Were you seeing her?" Landen's voice cracked. "I thought I was. I thought providing was enough. I thought giving her stability was enough." Preston shook his head gently. "Stability is not the same as love, nor presence." Landen covered his face with his hands. "Dad, I lost her." Preston rested a hand on his back. "Maybe. But losses aren't always endings. Sometimes they're lessons." Landen whispered, "I want to fix it." "Then learn," Preston said. "Learn who you were. Learn who she needed. And learn how to never repeat the same mistakes again." For the first time in months, Landen felt something shift. Not relief, not hope, but honesty. While Landen unraveled emotionally and began rebuilding from the inside out, Nicole continued learning herself in ways she hadn't before. Her pregnancy changed her, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. She became more intentional with her energy, more gentle with her heart, more patient with herself. She journaling every night, writing everything from small gratitudes to fears she was scared to say out loud. "I want to be a good mother. I hope they grow up in a peaceful home. I hope I'm enough. I hope Landen is healing too, wherever he is." Sometimes she wondered how he was doing. Sometimes she didn't want to think about him at all. But healing isn't tidy. It comes in waves. She'd stand in the mirror, watching her belly grow, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Nicole. Look at you, growing, stretching, surviving." Her strength wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't performative. It was steady. A quiet strength forged through emotional storms, morning sickness, loneliness, love, and community support. Every week someone checked on her. A church lady dropping off a home-cooked meal. A neighbor stopping by with fresh fruit. Teens from her youth group leaving little notes for her that said, "We love you, Miss Nicole." Imani insisting on doing her laundry because you're not lifting anything heavier than a sock. Marceline rubbing her back during long evenings. These weren't grand gestures. They were steady ones, and they filled in the cracks heartbreak left behind. Landen spent nights walking river paths, feeling the weight of his choices. Nicole spent nights talking to her belly, feeling the weight of new life. Landen replayed old memories on his phone. Nicole deleted old voicemails so she wouldn't keep reopening wounds. Landen stood in his penthouse staring at empty rooms that once held her presence. Nicole stood in a nursery humming lullabies to someone who didn't exist yet, but whose presence she already felt deeply. They were separated but connected by regret, love, silence, growth, and two small heartbeats that neither of them fully understood yet. Every step they took away from each other oddly brought them closer to the moment that would flip both their lives upside down. One night, Nicole lay awake feeling movements in her stomach, stronger than before. She smiled, rubbing her belly. "You're really active tonight," she whispered. She didn't know why her stomach felt heavier than expected. She didn't know her cravings were stronger because she was carrying more than one child. She didn't know the sharp flutter wasn't just one little foot, but two. Meanwhile, at that same moment, across town, Landen stood on his balcony staring at the skyline, hand pressed over his chest. "I miss you," he whispered into the night. He didn't know he wasn't just missing a wife. He was missing a family he didn't even know he had created. As we continue deeper into this story, let me pause for just a moment. Family, forgiveness, growth. These things shape all of us, whether we talk about it or not. And sometimes, hearing a story helps us understand our own. So if you're still here with me, if you're feeling something while listening, Do me a favor, drop a quick comment and tell me where you're watching from. Your comments help this story reach more people who might need it. And if this video is speaking to your heart in any way, take a second to like it and stay connected with the channel. You never know, your engagement might be the reason someone else finds strength today. Alright, let's keep going. Nicole sat by the window of her room late that night. She held a cup of warm tea, staring at the moon, feeling it light up her face. A tear slid down her cheek, but it wasn't heartbreak this time. It was gratitude, hope, fear, all tangled together. "I'm going to be okay," she whispered. Meanwhile, Landen whispered at the same moment, "I need to be better." Two hearts making promises to themselves. Promises that would collide sooner than either imagined. Because fate had already set the clock ticking toward the moment Landen would receive a phone call that would change everything. A nurse's voice. A hospital background. A message he never expected. And Nicole? She didn't know that her greatest moment of strength would become the moment that brought her past crashing back through the door. The boardroom was silent except for the gentle clicking of a projector and the rustling of papers as executives shifted in their seats. Landen sat at the head of the long conference table, navy. Suit crisp, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the quarterly metrics glowing on the screen. He had been speaking for 20 minutes, dissecting numbers and projections with the same precision he applied to every business decision. But something felt off today. His words were sharp, controlled, but hollow. His voice had rhythm, but no life. Even Sawyer, sitting 2 seats down, kept glancing at him with quiet concern. He knew Landen could give presentations in his sleep, but he also knew when a man was performing instead of living. And lately, Landen had been performing every day. As he clicked to the next slide, his phone, silent, face down, began vibrating violently against the table. Once, twice, then again, and again. Not the gentle buzz of a text, not the polite alert of an email. A call. Persistent, urgent. His assistant glanced over, eyebrows raised. No one ever called him during board meetings unless it was an emergency. Landen ignored it at first and continued speaking. As you can see, the phone vibrated again, then again. His heartbeat picked up. He reached for the phone, keeping his expression neutral, but the moment he looked at the screen, a strange chill ran through his body. Private number. Something deep inside him tightened. He swallowed, pressed the screen to decline the call, and tried to continue. As projected, fourth quarter will. The phone rang again. This time the vibration echoed unnervingly through the room. Sawyer muttered under his breath, "Man, maybe you should take that." Everyone was watching him now. Landen lifted the phone slowly, staring at the screen as though it might explode in his hand. He stood abruptly. "Excuse me, I need to take this." He stepped out of the boardroom, closing the glass door behind him. The hallway was quiet, empty. He exhaled and answered, "This is Landen." There was a short pause before a woman's voice spoke, professional, calm, but unmistakably urgent. "Mr. Jennings, this is Nurse Carla calling from St. Mercy Hospital." Landen's heart jolted. "A hospital? Why? What happened? Who?" The nurse continued gently but clearly. "We're contacting you because you're listed as the emergency contact for Miss Nicole Hayes." Everything inside him froze. It felt like the floor shifted beneath his feet. Nicole? Nicole? His breath hitched. Is she all right? What happened?" The nurse inhaled softly, as though preparing to deliver the single sentence that would alter the trajectory of his life. "Mr. Jennings, Miss Hayes has just given birth." Landen's mouth fell open slightly, but no sound came out. "Birth? Nicole? Pregnant?" He shook his head slowly, gripping the phone tighter. I'm sorry, what?" "She delivered twins this morning," Nurse Carla continued. "She's stable, but we're reaching out to all listed contacts. You were noted as her primary. Twins. Nicole. Birth." The words crashed into him like waves, each one hitting harder than the last. His pulse thundered. His fingers trembled. His lungs forgot how to pull air. Nicole had been pregnant. The entire time. When she left him. When she disappeared. When he waited, cried, walked the river. When he tried to find himself again. She'd been carrying 2 children. His children. The hallway spun slightly. He pressed a hand against the wall to steady himself. Are you sure?" he whispered, voice cracking. "Yes, sir. She delivered twins a few hours ago." His vision blurred. He whispered, "My God." The nurse hesitated before adding gently, "She's resting now. We advise you come as soon as possible." He couldn't speak. He could barely breathe. Twins. He closed his eyes and saw Nicole, smiling, laughing, crying, leaving, except this time he imagined her pregnant, alone, afraid. And he hadn't been there. Not for her. Not for them. Guilt slammed into him so hard he staggered. "Mr. Jennings? Will you be coming?" "Yes," he choked out. "I'm on my way." He ended the call but didn't lower the phone. He stood frozen in the hallway, staring at nothing, chest rising and falling in quick, uneven breaths. Nicole had been pregnant when she left him. He felt sick. The kind of sick that claws at your insides and makes your knees weak. She hadn't just left a marriage. She had left with his children inside her. And he hadn't known. He hadn't seen the signs. He hadn't protected her. He hadn't earned her trust. He whispered to himself, barely audible. She was pregnant, and I didn't even know. Regret sliced through him violently. Sawyer appeared behind him through the glass door, noticing the pale look on Landen's face. "Bro, you good? What happened?" Landen blinked hard, shaking himself back into motion. I have to go," he stuttered. "Cancel the rest of the meeting." Sawyer's eyes widened. "Is everything all right?" "No," Landen whispered truthfully. "It's not." He turned and sprinted down the hallway. Outside, he flagged down the first taxi he saw. "St. Mercy Hospital," he said, voice shaking. "Please, fast." The driver nodded and pulled into traffic. As the city blurred past the windows, Landen pressed his forehead to the glass, breath fogging the surface. Flashbacks slammed into him. Nicole laughing as they danced in her living room. Nicole teasing him about wearing sneakers to her family barbecue. Nicole asking him gently, "Can we spend more time together?" Nicole looking at him with hurt in her eyes at that elevator. Nicole leaving with a suitcase, the note she left on his pillow. Her goodbye, his silence, his pride, his ignorance. His heart twisted so violently he grabbed his chest. Tears filled his eyes, hot, unrestrained, uncontrollable. How did I miss this?" he whispered. The driver glanced back, concerned, but said nothing. Landen squeezed his eyes shut. He pictured her alone in a hospital bed, giving birth without him, without support, without the partner she should have had. The shame felt unbearable. He whispered, "Nicole, I'm so sorry." The city lights streaked across the window like broken memories. He had spent months grieving her absence, never realizing he was grieving something bigger, the family he had unknowingly abandoned. His heartbeat thundered with fear. What if she didn't want to see him? What if she refused to let him near the babies? What if she told him they weren't his? What if he was too late to make anything right? The taxi sped through intersections as though the universe knew urgency was required. His chest tightened again. Twins. His twins. He ran his hands over his face, whispering prayers he hadn't said in years. "Please let her be okay. Please let the babies be okay. Please let me fix this. Please." The taxi turned a corner. St. Mercy Hospital came into view. The sight of it made his stomach drop. This was it. Everything was about to change. The taxi stopped roughly at the hospital entrance. Landen paid without looking at the amount, shoved the door open, and rushed inside, breath shaky, heart pounding. The sliding doors opened with a soft hiss. The smell of antiseptic hit him. The sound of distant beeping monitors echoed down the hall. A pair of nurses walked by, quiet but quick. He froze for a moment in the hospital lobby. His hands were trembling. His mind was racing. His chest rose and fell too fast. Somewhere in this building, Nicole lay recovering. Somewhere in this building, 2 newborns waited, babies carrying his blood, his DNA, his future. Landen swallowed hard. He whispered to himself, voice breaking, "God, please don't let me have lost everything." He stepped toward the maternity wing, and that's where we end part 1. Everything is about to collide. Landen stood frozen at the entrance of the maternity wing, staring down a long hallway that felt like the gateway to a different lifetime. Each step he had taken inside the hospital replayed in his mind like slow-motion frames. His chest was tight, breath unsteady, palms damp. Somewhere behind those doors, Nicole lay recovering, and somewhere even closer, 2 newborns, twins, were breathing their first day of life. His children. The gravity of it left him feeling both weightless and crushed. He stepped forward slowly, as if afraid the floor might fall away. Every sound in the hallway felt magnified. A faint cry from a newborn behind a closed door. A nurse's shoes squeaking softly on the linoleum. A distant intercom announcement. His pulse thudded louder than anything around him. Then, a familiar voice called out quietly, "Landen?" He turned sharply. Marceline stood near the nurse's desk holding a folded blanket in her hands. Her expression was unreadable, not cold, not warm, not angry, just layered with emotions he couldn't decipher. His throat tightened. "Marceline," he whispered. She walked toward him slowly. For a moment he feared she might tell him to leave, that his presence wasn't welcome, that he had forfeited any claim to this moment. Instead, she stopped a few feet away and looked him up and down as though seeing him for the first time in months. "You look tired," she said softly. Landen swallowed hard. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear, I didn't know she was pregnant." Marceline nodded, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I believe you." Relief washed over Landen so suddenly that he nearly sagged. But Marceline added gently, "Believing you didn't know is not the same as believing she didn't feel alone." He lowered his gaze, shame burning through him. "I know," he murmured. "I know I failed her." Marceline studied him for a long moment. "She's been through a lot. I can imagine," he whispered. "And I'm not here to make anything harder. I need to see her. And the baby's—" Marceline's face softened then, just a little, just enough. "She's awake," she said. "Room 214. He nodded slowly, his pulse quickening. Is she okay?" "She's tired," Marceline replied, "but she's strong. She made it through." Landen's chest loosened with a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Before she walked away, Marceline touched his arm gently. "Whatever happens when you walk into that room, speak to her with honesty. She deserves that." Landen nodded again. "I will." He walked down the hallway like a man approaching a confession booth. Room 214. The numbers blurred slightly as he neared the door. His heart galloped. His palms were clammy. He wiped them on his pants and took a long, shaky breath. He lifted his hand to knock, but he froze. A nurse walked out at that moment, holding a clipboard. She smiled politely and nodded toward the doorway. "She's awake," the nurse said. "You can go in." He nodded, though his legs felt unsteady, and stepped forward. He pushed the door open slowly. The moment the door cracked, everything inside him broke open. Nicole sat slightly upright in the hospital bed, hair messy in the softest, most beautiful way, face pale from exhaustion, but glowing with a quiet strength he had never seen before. On her chest and nestled against her arms lay two tiny bundles wrapped in matching blankets, one with a faint tuft of hair, the other with almost none. Their faces were small, delicate, peaceful. They were sleeping. Nicole wasn't. Her eyes lifted immediately, almost instinctively, as though she sensed him before she saw him. When their eyes met, the air left the room. Everything inside him, regret, love, fear, longing, collided all at once. Nicole's face went still. Her lips parted slightly, barely forming a single word. "Landen." The sound of his name from her lips nearly broke him. He stepped inside slowly, afraid that any sudden movement would shatter the fragile moment. I'm here," he whispered. Nicole stared at him for a long heartbeat. He stared back, unable to look away from the woman he had loved, lost, and never stopped grieving. The room felt suddenly too small for the amount of emotions squeezed into it. Neither spoke for several seconds. Then her eyes dropped briefly to the twins in her arms. When she looked up again, something in her face hardened, softly, not cruelly, but protectively. "What are you doing here, Landen?" He swallowed. "They called me. The hospital." His voice cracked slightly. "They told me you had the babies." Nicole blinked, lashes trembling. "The babies," she repeated, voice faint. His throat tightened. "Nicole, why didn't you tell me?" Her jaw stiffened. "You weren't there, Landen." The words were sharp, gentle, but sharp enough to pierce. He took a shaky step closer. "I didn't know how broken you were. I didn't know how much I was hurting you." Nicole shook her head softly. "I wasn't going to raise a child in a home where I felt invisible." Landen lowered his gaze. Her truth was a knife he deserved. He lifted his eyes again and looked at the twins. two tiny faces that carried his features in ways he couldn't deny. His breath caught. They were perfect. His knees nearly gave out as a wave of emotion crashed over him. "Oh my God," he whispered, voice trembling. "They're beautiful." Nicole stared at him quietly, searching, measuring. Landen stepped closer, his hands trembling, as though afraid if he blinked they'd disappear. "They're mine," he whispered without thinking. "Aren't they?" Nicole's eyes narrowed slightly, controlled, guarded. "You tell me," she whispered. His heart pounded. "Nicole, I would never, never cheat on you. You know that—" His voice shook. "If these babies aren't mine, then who else could they possibly belong to?" She inhaled slowly, eyes shining with exhaustion and conflict. "I'm the only woman you were with," she said quietly. He felt something release inside him, something enormous, overwhelming, consuming. "Then they're mine," he whispered shakily. "They're really mine." His voice broke completely. Nicole looked away, blinking back tears. Her voice came out small, fragile, but firm. "Why should I trust you to be here now, Landen? Why should I believe you won't disappear the next time work calls?" He stepped closer, not arrogantly, not confidently, but humbly. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Because losing you showed me who I was. And coming here today is not about making us whole again." He gestured toward the twins. "It's about them. It's about being the man I should have been the moment you needed me." Nicole's eyes softened, barely, but not enough to melt the wall she had built around her heart. He added, voice raw, "I didn't know you were pregnant. Nicole, if I had known, I swear I would have been here every step of the way." Nicole held his gaze, silent. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't tell you because I didn't trust you to stay." That truth hit harder than anything else. He nodded, tears forming. "I understand, and I'm sorry." "You saying sorry doesn't fix months of silence," Nicole replied. "I know," he said, "but I'm not leaving this room. Not unless you tell me to walk out." She stared at him with a strange mixture of hurt and disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. "Because," he said, voice steady, "I finally understand what my presence means, and I refuse to fail them the way I failed you." Something inside her flickered then, an emotion caught between fear and hope. He moved to the side of the bed, slowly, cautiously, as though approaching something sacred. "Can I?" he whispered, voice cracking. "Can I see them closer?" Nicole hesitated, eyes searching his face for sincerity. She shifted slightly, revealing the babies more fully. The moment he truly saw them, saw their tiny fingers, their soft cheeks, their delicate breathing, his entire body broke down. Tears ran silently down his face. This is everything I didn't know I was missing," he whispered. Nicole looked at him for a long moment. Even through her hurt, she could not deny what she saw. Landen wasn't acting. His pain wasn't performative. This was a man gutted by truth. A man who suddenly understood fatherhood at first sight. The twins shifted slightly in their sleep, tiny hands curling into fists. Landen gasped softly, covering his mouth. Nicole watched him, something softening in her expression, not forgiveness, not acceptance, but understanding. He whispered, "Thank you for bringing them into the world. Thank you for keeping them safe. Thank you for being strong when I wasn't." Nicole looked down at her babies, brushing a thumb over one of their cheeks. "I did what I had to do," she said quietly. "And I'm trying to do what I should have done," he replied. Their eyes met again. No shouting, no bitterness, just layered emotion and a fragile bridge forming between two broken people holding something precious. "You can sit," Nicole murmured softly, nodding toward a chair. It wasn't much, but it wasn't nothing. It was the first step in a room full of new beginnings. The room was quiet after the initial emotional storm settled, quiet in a way that felt almost sacred. The soft hum of hospital machinery, the faint beeping from monitors down the hall, and the slow breathing of two newborns filled the space with a strange kind of peace. Landen sat beside the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped loosely together as he tried to steady himself. He kept glancing at the twins, unable to look away for more than a few seconds at a time. Every movement they made, a tiny twitch, a sigh, a stretch of fingers, sent another wave of awe through him. He felt like he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. He also felt like he didn't deserve it. Nicole watched him quietly. Her expression wasn't warm, but it wasn't closed either. It hovered somewhere in the middle, wary, exhausted, but open enough to let him sit there and breathe the same air as their newborn children. The twins remained nestled in her arms, sleeping peacefully beneath the soft glow of the overhead lights. After several minutes of silence, Nicole spoke gently. "If you want, you can hold one." Landen looked up so fast she nearly flinched. "Are you sure?" he whispered, eyes wide. She nodded slowly. "Yes." His hands trembled as he stood. He approached the bed cautiously, as though approaching something too fragile to touch. Nicole shifted slightly, carefully lifting the baby with the faint tuft of hair. She supported the head with practiced motions, guiding his tiny form into the cradle of her arm. When she extended the infant toward Landen, his breath caught. I don't want to hurt him," he said softly. "You won't," Nicole replied. "Just support the head." Her tone held no accusation. For the first time since he entered the room, she sounded almost familiar. He nodded and reached forward with both hands, palms open, fingers steadying. When the weight of the newborn settled gently into his arms, Landen felt the air leave his lungs. The baby stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering, lips puckering before relaxing again. "Oh my," Landen whispered. I don't even know what to say." Nicole watched him hold the infant, her expression shifting again, unreadable. "He's small," Landen murmured, voice trembling. "So small." "He was born early this morning," Nicole replied gently. "They're both healthy." Landen's eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Healthy," he repeated softly, as though needing to say it out loud to believe it. "I wasn't here, but they're healthy." He rocked slowly, instinctively, the way he'd seen new parents do, though he'd never practiced it himself. The baby's head rested perfectly in the crook of his elbow, tiny hands curled near his chest. He looked down at the infant, as though seeing the meaning of life for the first time. "I'm your dad," he whispered. Nicole inhaled sharply. The words felt like confessions, like promises, like a vow he didn't know how to make before now. "I'm your dad," he repeated, voice breaking. "I should have been here sooner. I should have known. I should have taken better care of your mom. I should have." His voice cracked entirely. Nicole looked away, blinking hard, trying to shield herself from emotion she wasn't ready to acknowledge. The baby shifted again, making a small sound, something between a sigh and a tiny cry. Landen panicked briefly, bouncing lightly, but Nicole reached out quickly. "He's fine," she assured him calmly. "He just likes being close." Landen nodded, lowering his cheek near the infant's head. He closed his eyes, allowing tears to slip down freely. This is the most meaningful moment of my life," he whispered. Nicole looked at him for a long moment, her expression softening, not with forgiveness, but with recognition. She had imagined many versions of how Landen would react to the news of the twins, but she had never imagined this level of vulnerability, this raw break in the man she used to know. "This one is your son," she said quietly, nodding toward the baby in his arms. Landen gasped softly. "My son." He lowered his head, pressing a gentle kiss to the infant's forehead. Then he looked at the other baby in Nicole's arms. "And she—" "Our daughter," Nicole said. A fresh wave of emotion washed over him. "I have a son and a daughter," he whispered, his voice shaking. I can't believe it." Nicole swallowed hard. "Neither could I." A soft knock tapped at the door before it opened, and Marceline stepped inside carrying a fresh blanket. She paused when she saw Landen holding the baby, and her face softened in a way that carried decades of maternal intuition. "Well," she whispered, "looks like someone just met his match." Landen let out a trembling laugh, still unable to look away from the infant. Marceline approached him gently. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a simple gesture, but one filled with meaning. "You're holding him right," she said with warm approval. "You look natural." At that, Landen almost cried again. "Thank you," he whispered. Marceline nodded. She didn't say anything more, but the subtle shift in her presence told Nicole everything. Her mother had accepted him back, maybe not as a partner, maybe not as a son-in-law, but as the father of her grandchildren. And that was its own kind of peace. Marceline turned to Nicole. "Baby, you need anything?" Nicole shook her head gently. "I'm okay, Mama." Marceline lingered a moment longer, then stepped out again, giving them space. Nicole watched Landen as he paced lightly, gently rocking the infant in his arms. There was something unfamiliar about him, something she hadn't seen during their marriage. Softness, awareness, presence, not the distracted, overworked man she had walked away from. This version of him, quiet, shaken, humbled, was someone she didn't know how to react to. Part of her felt relieved. Part of her felt anger rising again. Part of her felt grief for the life they could have had if he had been this man earlier. And part of her felt terrified, because seeing him like this made her realize something dangerous. She still loved him. Deeply. Painfully. Enough that it scared her. But love wasn't enough to erase the hurt he caused. And it certainly wasn't enough to trust him again. So she stayed quiet, watching him navigate fatherhood with trembling hands. Her heart ached in a way she couldn't describe. Hours passed. The overhead lights dimmed as night settled across the hospital. The twins slept most of the evening. Nurses came in periodically to check vital signs and monitor Nicole's recovery. At one point, a nurse entered and asked softly, "Dad, would you like to place him in the bassinet while we check Mom's vitals?" The word Dad hit him like a small earthquake. "Yes," he whispered, voice trembling. "Yes, of course." He carefully transferred his son into the tiny bassinet, adjusting the blanket with clumsy tenderness. The nurse smiled at him, knowingly, warmly, before turning her attention to Nicole. Landen stepped back, giving them space, but he didn't leave the room. He refused to leave. When the nurse was done, she turned to Landen again. "You can help change them later if you'd like," she offered gently. Landen's eyebrows lifted, almost comically. "Change?" Nicole smirked slightly. "Diapers." Landen swallowed. "Diapers. Right, yes, I'll learn." Nicole looked at him for a moment, his bewildered expression almost endearing. "You'll be fine," she said softly. His chest rose with relief. As night deepened, Nicole drifted in and out of sleep, exhausted from labor. When she dozed off completely, Landen remained beside the bed, watching the twins in their bassinets. He sat in the chair, elbows on his knees, chin resting in his hands. He whispered softly, "I'm going to be here. I'm not leaving them. I'm not walking away from this family again. I don't care how long it takes to prove it. I'm not going anywhere." At one point, the daughter began to fuss. Landen stood immediately, almost tripping over the chair leg, rushing to her side. He hovered nervously. "What do I do? What do I do?" Nicole stirred slightly. "Just pick her up. Are you sure?" "I don't want to." "Pick her up, Landen," she murmured. He did. The baby calmed almost instantly against his chest. He rocked her slowly, eyes shining. He whispered, "Hi, sweetheart. It's okay. I've got you." Nicole watched through sleepy eyes, something in her chest warming and breaking at the same time. He wasn't performing. He wasn't pretending. He was falling in love with his children, visibly, deeply, without hesitation, and it hurt her in the most unexpected way. Hours later, when both twins were asleep and Nicole drifted again, Landen stepped into the hallway to breathe. He leaned against the wall, head dropped, whispering, "I'm going to do this right. I'm going to be their father. I'm going to earn her trust back, not because I deserve her, but because they deserve the best version of me." His voice cracked. "I'm done being half present. I'm done hiding behind work. I'm done missing the moments that matter." He inhaled deeply. "This is my second chance, and I won't ruin it. If you're still here listening to this journey unfold, if you've ever experienced heartbreak, healing, or unexpected second chances, I want to ask you to do something simple. Tap that like button. Leave a comment telling me how this story is making you feel. And subscribe if you haven't already. You never know. Your engagement might help someone else find the encouragement they didn't know they needed tonight. All right, let's continue. Back in the room, Landen pulled the chair closer to the bassinets. He didn't sit this time. He knelt, kneeling beside his children, kneeling beside the woman he hurt, kneeling before a future he never thought he deserved. Nicole woke briefly and saw him there, hands resting on the edge of the bassinet, head bowed in quiet reflection. He wasn't praying in words, but he was praying with his posture, with his presence, with his transformation. Nicole's heart clenched. She didn't know if she could forgive him. She didn't know if she could trust him. She didn't know if she could rebuild what they lost. But for the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't felt since before the marriage began to crumble. Hope. Morning sunlight pressed gently through the thin hospital curtains, painting the room in a soft glow. Nicole stirred awake before her eyes fully opened, sensing movement in the room. Her first instinct was to reach for the twins, but they weren't in her arms. She blinked, then blinked again. Across the room, Landen stood at the bassinets wearing hospital scrubs over his clothes, clearly given to him after a nurse noticed how many times he came close to dozing off in his button-down shirt the night before. His hair was messy, his face was tired, and faint dark circles sat beneath his eyes. But he was smiling. A soft, private smile. He was gently rocking one bassinet with one hand, while adjusting the other baby's blanket with the other. Nicole's breath caught a little. He wasn't performing for her. He didn't know she was awake. He was simply being a father. She swallowed, unsure how that made her feel. Something inside her softened instinctively, but she tried to hold herself steady. She was not ready for forgiveness, but she couldn't deny what she saw. Landen looked up finally and noticed her watching him. "Oh," he said quietly, smile widening. "You're up?" Nicole rubbed her eyes. "How long have you been standing there?" He glanced at the twins. "Since before sunrise. They woke up around 5, and again at 6, and again about 15 minutes ago." Nicole attempted a small smile. "Welcome to parenthood." Landen chuckled under his breath. "It's a lot." Nicole nodded. "It is." There was a pause. Not uncomfortable, just new. She slowly sat up, careful of her sore muscles. "You didn't have to stay all night," she murmured. "I wanted to," Landen said, as if the answer were obvious. "I didn't want to miss anything, especially not their first night." Nicole looked at him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Something warm, something old, something familiar flickered in her chest. She cleared her throat. "Did the nurses help you?" He nodded, smiling shyly. "They taught me how to change a diaper." Nicole raised her eyebrows. "How'd that go?" His face shifted into a look of pure embarrassment. "I put it on backwards." Nicole burst out laughing, surprising herself with how natural it felt. Landen looked stunned at first, then relieved, then amused. "I'm serious," he said, grinning. The nurse said she'd never seen someone fold a diaper that way before. Nicole shook her head, still laughing softly. "You're ridiculous." Landen held one hand to his chest dramatically. "I'll have you know I mastered it the second time." "Did you now?" she teased. "I did. Though," he leaned in conspiratorially, "I think your daughter was judging me." Their daughter. The words hung in the air. Neither of them dared acknowledge the weight of it. By late afternoon, Nicole was cleared for discharge. Marceline returned to help gather everything: gifts, flowers, baby supplies, blankets. Landen stood by, ready to assist with anything heavy. He was careful, quiet, attentive, never overstepping but always near. When the nurse brought the wheelchair to take Nicole downstairs, she held one twin while Landen carried the other in a hospital-approved car seat. Nicole hesitated for a split second before allowing him to handle one of the babies. She had carried the weight of pregnancy alone for so long that sharing it felt foreign. But she let him. Downstairs they reached the lobby. People passing by smiled at the tiny twins bundled tightly in their seats. Nicole felt a swelling of pride mixed with exhaustion. Outside the hospital doors, the cold air brushed her skin. Landen waited by the curb where Marceline's car was parked. He secured the car seats with slow, precise movements, double-checking every latch. Nicole watched him. She couldn't deny it. He was trying in a way she had longed for during their marriage. When everything was secure, he stepped aside so she could sit. Marceline climbed behind the wheel. "You riding with us?" Nicole asked quietly. Landen hesitated. "If you want me to." Nicole paused, studying him. "You can follow behind us," she said gently. "Just meet us at the house." He nodded. "Okay." He didn't push for more. He didn't try to slip back into husband mode. He simply accepted the boundary. Nicole appreciated that more than he knew. The house that had always been filled with the smells of cooking and the sounds of neighborhood chatter now held something new: soft, newborn breaths, tiny coos, and the endless rustling of blankets. Nicole eased into the couch, settling into a nest of pillows as her twins slept beside her. Her body still ached in ways she didn't have words for. The reality of postpartum recovery was hitting her: heavy limbs, tender muscles, exhaustion that sat deep in her bones. But having someone else here, someone ready to help, was easing the burden. Landen arrived a few minutes later, knocking quietly before entering. Marceline let him in and handed him a sterilized bottle. "You might as well learn," she said with a knowing nod. Landen swallowed nervously. "I'll try." Nicole smirked from the couch. Just don't put it on backwards. Ha ha, he deadpanned. Very funny. Nicole smiled again. He sat near her, leaving respectful space, and helped prepare bottles while she watched. His movements were uncertain but careful, his focus intense. It was almost funny. Landen, the man who negotiated million-dollar deals with absolute confidence, now fumbling with bottle caps like they were complex machinery. "You don't have to watch my every move," he murmured. "I'm making sure you don't spill anything," Nicole shot back. "You have zero faith in me. When it comes to newborns, yes." He blinked, then grinned. "Fair." Nicole exhaled a small laugh. It was their third laugh today. Her heart noticed. By 2 a.m., the house was dim and quiet. Nicole fed one baby while Landen fed the other. Both sat on opposite ends of the same couch. Close, but not too close. The twins suckled softly, their tiny fingers curled into their blankets. Nicole yawned. "You should get some rest," Landen said gently. "So should you," Nicole countered. He chuckled. "I don't think I could sleep even if I tried." "Why not?" He hesitated, then said softly, "Because I keep worrying I'll miss something." Nicole blinked. She swallowed. "You don't have to stay every night." "I know," he said quietly. "But I want to help. I owe you that much." Nicole looked down at her baby. "This isn't about owing me, Landen." He nodded slowly. "Then let me rephrase it. I want to be here, because I care, because I want to learn, because I don't want you doing this alone." Nicole's throat tightened. "I did do it alone. For months." He nodded again, shame flickering in his eyes. "I know, and I'll carry that regret with me forever. But please let me carry some of this now." Nicole inhaled slowly, exhaling through trembling lips. She nodded once. "Okay." Landen's shoulders relaxed, just a little. Around 3 a.m., the twins were finally asleep again. Nicole leaned back into the couch cushions, eyes heavy. Landen sat beside her, elbows resting on his knees. After a long silence, he spoke. "What were you craving during the pregnancy?" Nicole blinked, surprised. "Pickles. And cornbread." He smiled softly. "I would have made you both every day." "You can't cook," she teased lightly. He pressed a hand to his chest. Hurtful, but accurate. She fought a smile. "What about you? What about me? What did you do when I left?" The question hung in the air, heavier than either expected. Landen's expression shifted, sadness brushing his features. "I walked," he said quietly. "A lot. At night, along the river. I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking about all the ways I failed you." Nicole looked away. "That doesn't erase what happened," she whispered. "I know," he said. "I'm not trying to erase anything. I just want you to know I wasn't okay either." Another pause. "I missed you," he added softly. Nicole shut her eyes briefly, pained. "Please don't say that." "Why?" he asked gently. "Because I'm still hurt," she whispered. "And hearing you say things like that makes it harder to protect my heart." He nodded, eyes filled with remorse. "I won't say it again if you don't want me to." Nicole's voice softened. "I didn't say that." Their eyes met. Close, too close. She looked away again quickly. Around sunrise, the twins began fussing in unison, crying with surprising force for tiny humans. Landen jumped up too quickly to be helpful and stumbled over a baby blanket on the floor. He tried to catch himself on the coffee table. He missed. He landed flat on his back with a loud thud. Nicole gasped, then slapped a hand over her mouth as laughter bubbled up uncontrollably. "Oh my God, Landen, are you—" She burst out laughing again. "Are you okay?" Landen groaned dramatically. "I think I saw my ancestors." Nicole doubled over laughing, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. It was the purest laugh she had released in months, loud, unfiltered, joyful. Landen looked at her from the floor and smiled. He didn't mind being the reason she laughed. "Okay," Nicole wheezed, wiping her eyes. "Maybe co-parenting with you won't be unbearable." He sat up slowly. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It wasn't," she teased. "It felt like one." She laughed softly again. And for a moment, just a moment, neither of them were broken people trying to rebuild something fragile. They were just two new parents, exhausted, tender, and learning how to breathe again. Later that morning, as the twins finally napped, Nicole watched Landen reorganize the diaper bag. He handled each item with care, studying labels, triple-checking the contents. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was simply trying. Nicole's heart shifted in her chest, slowly, cautiously. Part of her still feared letting him in again. Part of her still carried the hurt of feeling invisible. Part of her still protected herself from the risk of being abandoned emotionally. But another part, one she tried hard to ignore, was beginning to whisper, "He has changed. He is trying. He loves them. He loves you." She swallowed hard, pushing the thought away. She wasn't ready, not yet, but she wasn't shutting him out anymore either. And that alone was progress. The house was quiet after a long night of feedings, tears, and the first thread of laughter they had shared in months. Nicole had finally dozed off in the recliner, her head resting against the soft fabric, one twin asleep on her chest while the other rested in a bassinet beside her. Landen stood a few feet away, watching her breathe. He didn't know how long he'd been standing there. Minutes, maybe longer. All he knew was that seeing her like this, peaceful, vulnerable, glowing in the morning light with her child asleep against her heart, made something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. He wanted to protect this. He wanted to earn back what he lost. He wanted to deserve this moment. But the past still sat between them like a heavy shadow, and one question lingered in his mind every time Nicole looked at him with cautious eyes. How do I make her trust me again? He wasn't sure, but he knew he had to try. Around noon, Marceline entered the living room after returning from picking up groceries. She glanced at Nicole sleeping, then at Landen standing silently nearby. "She finally got some rest," Marceline whispered. Landen nodded. "She needs it." Marceline set down a grocery bag, took a breath, and walked closer to him. "You're doing good," she said softly. Landen swallowed. "I'm trying. I see that." She paused, studying his face, but she's still holding on to what she saw, Landen. That moment at the elevator crushed her. His jaw tightened. "I know," he murmured. "I wish I could fix it. I wish I could explain it in a way that makes sense." "Then explain it," Marceline said calmly. "To her and to yourself." "I've tried," he said, voice low, "but even I don't fully understand it." Marceline narrowed her eyes slightly. "What do you mean?" Landen hesitated. "She wasn't someone I was involved with," he said carefully. "But that moment, the timing, the way it looked, none of it made sense even to me." Marceline raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying what Nicole saw wasn't real?" He shook his head slowly. "No, she saw what she saw, but the intention behind it, that's what I never understood." She leaned in slightly. "Then maybe you need to look deeper." Her words lingered long after she walked away. The twins eventually woke, and Landen fed them while Nicole rested. That afternoon, he left briefly to pick up a prescription the nurse had given them. He walked through the pharmacy aisle, mechanically reading labels, exhaustion weighing on him. His mind wandered, replaying the last few days, the last few months, the mistakes that ripped his marriage apart. He was stepping toward the counter when his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. S." He froze. His stomach tightened. There was only one person whose initial that could be. Summer. His blood ran cold. He stepped outside, heart pounding. Before he could think twice, his phone buzzed again. Another message. "I didn't mean for things to go that far." Landen clenched his jaw. "That far? What does that mean?" He typed back carefully. "Meet me." "Today." Her reply came in seconds. "Conference room, 5 p.m. You know which one?" He closed his eyes briefly, feeling a wave of dread. This wasn't about starting an argument with a woman he barely knew. This was about uncovering something that didn't sit right for months. Nicole had seen him at the elevator with Summer. She saw what she thought was betrayal, but something about that night always felt staged. He didn't know why. But today, he would find out. Landen arrived early. The conference room was empty, sunlight spilling through wide windows across the gleaming table. He stood there, hands on the back of a chair, waiting. At precisely 5 p.m., Summer walked in. She looked uneasy, not confident like she usually appeared in boardrooms, not smug like the night Nicole saw her with him. She closed the door behind her. "You messaged me?" she said quietly. "Yes," Landen replied, restrained. "Sit." She sank into a chair, clasping her hands. He leaned forward. "What happened that night?" Her eyes flickered. "Which night?" "Don't play with me." She swallowed hard. Landen took a slow breath. Nicole saw us at the elevator. She saw you kiss me. She left me because of that moment. Summer blinked rapidly. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to, he repeated sharply. Explain. Her voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to look like that, Landen. I swear it. His breath slowed. It was supposed to distract you for a second. That's all. Distract. Me? She nodded numbly. I was told to get in your way that night, to pull you aside, to interrupt your plans. Landen's heart thudded. By who? Summer's hands trembled slightly. The investor, the one who always said Nicole was bad for business. Landen's spine stiffened. He knew exactly who she meant. Loud opinions, aggressive strategies, constant commentary on Nicole's presence at events. And what did he tell you to do? Landen asked quietly. She wiped her palms on her skirt. He said you were losing focus, that Nicole was distracting you, that you needed to be reminded of what mattered to your brand. Her voice shook. He said if I could get your attention, even for a second, he'd make it worth my while. Landen felt something inside him twist painfully. And the kiss? He asked, voice barely steady. She swallowed again. I panicked. I tried to stop you from walking away. You turned your head and you kissed me, he finished. She nodded, eyes full of guilt. I swear, Landen, you didn't do anything. You were trying to leave. You said you were going home to Nicole. I grabbed your arm. You tried to pull away. I misread everything. Landen felt his knees weaken. So the moment my wife saw, the moment that destroyed everything, wasn't real? Summer's voice broke. No, it wasn't. I'm so sorry. I never imagined she'd show up there that night. I never imagined she'd see anything. It wasn't supposed to harm anyone's marriage. It was supposed to be business interference. Business interference. Someone had used his marriage as a pawn. Landen stared at the wall, breath shallow. Nicole had suffered months of heartbreak over a moment he had spent nearly a year blaming himself for. He whispered, Do you know what that moment cost us? Summer looked down. I do now. He stepped back, eyes burning. You need to tell her. Summer shook her head frantically. She'll hate me. She already does. He snapped. But she shouldn't hate me for something I didn't do. Summer looked up, trembling. I will talk to her, if you want. But Landen, she might never believe me. He closed his eyes. She will, he said quietly, because I'm going to bring her the truth myself. Landen drove faster than he meant to, hands gripping the wheel so tightly his fingers throbbed. He wasn't angry at Nicole. He wasn't even angry at Summer anymore. He was furious at himself, because he had spent months believing Nicole walked away simply because she didn't trust him. But she had walked away because someone used her love as a weapon. His chest tightened with every mile. He needed to get home. He needed to see her. He needed to tell her everything. He replayed Nicole's face when she left, the note on the pillow, the trembling in her voice when she said, I feel like I married a stranger. She wasn't speaking about him, not fully. She was speaking about confusion, fear, betrayal, a betrayal she never should have experienced. His throat burned. He pressed harder on the gas. Nothing mattered more than getting to her. Back at Marceline's house, Nicole paced the living room while holding the twins. She felt restless, unsettled. She changed one baby, then switched arms with the other, then circled the room again. She didn't know what was bothering her. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe hormones. Maybe something deeper in her spirit that whispered, something is coming. Marceline stepped in. Baby, you okay? Nicole nodded slowly, just unsettled. Like something's off. You want to sit? No. She adjusted the twins. I don't know. Marceline watched her for a long moment. You're scared, she finally said. Nicole stopped walking. I'm not scared, Nicole whispered. Baby, yes you are. You're scared to trust him again. Nicole swallowed hard. Maybe. She looked down at her babies. I can't afford to let him hurt me again, she murmured. Maybe he won't, Marceline said gently. People do change. Nicole shook her head lightly. People change after learning the truth. What truth? Nicole's lips parted. She didn't know, but something in her heart told her she was standing on the edge of a moment she couldn't walk backward from. The front door opened with a soft click. Nicole stiffened. She turned slowly. Landen stood there, breath uneven, eyes rimmed with emotion so raw she felt it like a tremor in the air. "Nicole," he said, voice strained. "I need to talk to you." She tightened her hold on the twins. "What happened?" He swallowed hard. "Everything you thought you saw, everything that ruined us, it wasn't real." Nicole's face froze. "What are you talking about?" He stepped forward, not too close, but close enough she could see the truth trembling in his eyes. "I didn't kiss her," he whispered. "Nicole, she kissed me." Nicole blinked rapidly. "Landen, don't." "And it wasn't an accident," he continued. "It was planned. Someone wanted to break us apart. Someone wanted to interfere with my life. Someone used you as leverage." She stared at him, unable to move, unable to speak. "I didn't betray you," he said, voice cracking. "I never touched her. I never loved anyone but you." Nicole's knees weakened. Her vision blurred. Her breath left her in a shaky exhale. Marceline stepped forward, instinctively ready to support her daughter. Nicole whispered, "Landen, please don't lie to me." "I'm not lying. She told me everything today." He stepped closer, eyes glistening. She confessed. All of it. Nicole felt the world tilt. Her throat tightened. Her chest caved inward. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. "So, you didn't—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "No," he said, voice soft, breaking. "I didn't—" Nicole's face crumpled as a sound escaped her, half sob, half gasp. Her legs gave out. Marceline caught one twin while Landen reached instinctively for the other baby and Nicole at the same time, steadying them both. Nicole pressed her free hand to her mouth as she sobbed. "I left you because of that moment," she cried. "I thought you threw me away." "I know," he whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks. "And losing you nearly destroyed me." She sobbed harder. "I raised our babies alone because of that moment." He nodded, voice shattering. "I know, and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Nicole folded forward, overwhelmed, undone. Landen lowered his head beside hers. They cried together, not as broken lovers, not as people who failed each other, but as two souls realizing the universe had played a cruel trick on them. A truth that shattered. A truth that healed. A truth that changed everything. Nicole stood in the middle of the living room, breath shallow, eyes swollen, heart shaking beneath her ribs. Her tears hadn't stopped since Landen told her the truth, a truth so heavy, so unexpected, it made her knees go weak. The twins were now in Marceline's arms, resting against her shoulders while she quietly rocked them near the hallway. Marceline didn't speak. She didn't need to. She understood that this moment belonged to Nicole and Landen, a moment months in the making, and a moment neither of them saw coming. Nicole pressed her fingertips to her temples, trying to steady herself. "You're telling me," she whispered, "that every night I spent wondering what I did wrong, every moment I thought you chose someone else, all of that pain, was because of someone trying to manipulate your business?" Landen swallowed hard. "Yes. And I'm so sorry, Nicole. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." She took one shaky step backward, then another, as if her body needed distance to process the shock. Her back nearly touched the wall. Landen moved an inch forward, then stopped himself, honoring the space she needed. Nicole looked up at him with eyes full of hurt and disbelief. "You have no idea what that moment did to me. I replayed it over and over. I questioned everything. I questioned myself." Her voice wavered. "I thought I wasn't enough for you." Landen flinched as if struck. "Nicole, no. You were the best thing in my life. I was losing myself, and you were the only thing that grounded me. I didn't pull away because of you. I pulled away because I didn't know how to ask for help." Nicole wiped her cheeks, breath trembling. "Why didn't you tell me that then?" she asked, voice cracking. "Why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you fight for me?" Landen's eyes glistened. "Because I was a coward. Because I thought admitting I was overwhelmed meant I was weak. Because I didn't realize that loving you required me to show the parts of myself I was most afraid of." Nicole stared at him for a long moment. A deep, searching moment. Then she lowered her gaze. "I wish I had known," she whispered. "I wish everything had gone differently." Landen moved a step closer, slow, cautious, sincere. "Nicole, I can't change the past, but I'm here now, and I want to rebuild everything I broke." Nicole pressed a hand against her chest as if trying to hold herself together. "Trust doesn't rebuild in a day," she said thickly. "I know," he replied gently, "but I'm willing to earn it." Every day. As long as it takes. Their eyes met again, not as broken lovers, but as two people realizing the story they thought had ended was only shifting chapters. Hours passed in soft silence. Marceline eventually placed the twins back in their bassinets, humming under her breath as she tucked them in. The air felt calmer now, but still fragile, like a cracked glass carefully being held together by warm hands. Nicole stood near the window, staring out at the neighborhood she grew up in, the porch lights glowing across the street, the faint hum of cars driving by, the distant laughter of teenagers from the corner house. Her world, her safety net, the place she retreated to when her heart began to crumble. Landen approached slowly, stopping a few feet behind her. "Do you want to sit?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "Not yet. My mind is spinning." "That's okay," he murmured. "I'm here when you're ready." Nicole exhaled shakily. "I don't even know where to begin." "Begin with how you feel," Landen said gently. "Not how you think you're supposed to feel." Nicole turned slightly, her eyes still glassy. "Confused," she murmured. "Hurt, relieved, angry, sad, hopeful. All at once." "That makes sense," he said. "Any person would feel that way after everything you've been through." She studied him, really studied him. He wasn't the same man she left months ago. His eyes were softer, his shoulders less rigid, his presence quieter, more attentive. She could see the changes not in dramatic gestures but in small, consistent details. The way he moved slower around her, the way he paused before speaking, the way he listened without interrupting. He wasn't trying to force a reconciliation. He wasn't rushing her healing. He wasn't trying to rewrite the past. He was simply standing there, offering himself as someone willing to do the work. Nicole wrapped her arms around herself and looked away. "Landen, I don't know how to let go of the hurt." "You don't have to let go of it yet," he replied softly. "You just have to let me stand with you while you carry it." Her breath caught. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. The next few days unfolded slowly, not as a couple, but as two people learning how to share the same space again. They took turns feeding the twins. They watched late-night TV quietly when sleep wouldn't come. They talked in short, gentle conversations that revealed more truth than their old arguments ever had. Nicole noticed things she hadn't seen in a long time. How carefully Landen held the babies. How he paused before touching anything of hers. How he asked permission instead of assuming. How he stepped aside when she needed space. He was learning her again, softly, patiently, respectfully. One afternoon, she found him assembling a small shelf in the nursery. He was sweating, concentrating and muttering at the screws like they personally offended him. Nicole laughed under her breath. "You know the instructions booklet is right next to you, right?" He froze, looked at the booklet, looked at her, then grinned sheepishly. "In my defense," he said, wiping his forehead, "I thought I could figure it out myself." "You couldn't?" "No, I absolutely could not." Her smile lingered as she walked over. "Scoot." Landen shifted to make space for her, and together they pieced the shelf together. A quiet teamwork. A comfortable silence. A shared rhythm they didn't know they could still have. When they finished, they stepped back and admired their crooked accomplishment. "It's leaning a little," Nicole said. "It's leaning a lot," Landen corrected. They burst into soft laughter. And that laughter, that tender, imperfect human sound, stitched another thread back into place. On a Thursday morning, nearly a week after the truth came out, Nicole was holding one of the twins close to her chest, humming lightly while rocking in the nursery chair. Landen entered quietly, holding the other twin. "Hey," he whispered. "Hey." He sat beside her. Their knees brushed for a split second. Nicole didn't pull away. As they rocked the babies, one twin's lips curled upward slightly, a small, soft grin. Nicole gasped. "Did you see that?" Landen leaned forward. "Did she just smile?" Nicole finished breathlessly. She smiled. They both looked down at the twin in Landen's arms, and a second grin appeared, just as tiny, just as perfect. Nicole covered her mouth with trembling fingers. "Oh my God," she whispered. They smiled at the same time. Landen swallowed hard, eyes shining. "Our first smiles," he murmured. Nicole looked at him, not at his mistakes, not at their past, not at the pain that divided them. She looked at the man holding her child with wonder in his eyes, and something inside her cracked open, not broken, open, That night, after Marceline went to bed and the twins were finally asleep in their bassinets, Nicole and Landen sat together on the couch. For once, it didn't feel tense. It felt quiet, gentle, safe. Nicole drew in a breath. "Landen, I want to say something." He turned, attentive. "Anything." She fiddled with her blanket. "When I left, I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because staying hurt too much." Landen's chest tightened. "I know. I felt invisible," she whispered. "Like I didn't matter to your world anymore. You mattered more than anything," he said quietly. She nodded. "I believe that now. But back then, all I saw was you slipping away. And I was," he admitted. "I thought being strong meant being silent. I didn't realize silence can feel like abandonment." Their eyes met with the kind of honesty that doesn't scream, it breathes. Nicole exhaled. "I want to try, not to jump back into anything, but to see where this can go. Slowly, carefully." Landen didn't smile. He didn't rush forward. He didn't treat it like a victory. He simply reached out his hand. Slow, respectful, open. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Their fingers intertwined softly, not as husband and wife, not as broken lovers, not as a couple trying to redo the past, but as two people choosing each other again, one breath at a time. Over the next few weeks, small moments turned into meaningful ones. Early morning feedings where they swapped stories about childhood. Afternoons walking the babies around the block. Evenings cooking simple meals together while Marceline teased them. Quiet confessions whispered between yawns at 3 a.m. They were not rushing anything. They were not pretending the hurt didn't happen. They were simply choosing to show up, every day, every night, every feeding, every diaper, every laugh, every tear. Landen stopped living in apology. Nicole stopped living in fear. They began living in presence. One night, after both twins finally drifted into the deepest sleep they'd had yet, Nicole and Landen stood side by side beneath the doorway of the nursery. Nicole whispered, "Do you think we'll make it?" Landen reached out and gently took her hand. "I think," he said softly, "that if we keep choosing each other the way we choose them, we already are." Nicole leaned her head against his shoulder. Not as a promise, not as a guarantee, but as the first step toward a future they were finally ready to build. Together, one breath at a time. Family, if this story touched something inside you, don't leave without hitting like. It helps more people receive the encouragement you received today. And tell me in the comments, what lesson are you taking with you tonight? Your voice matters here. If you're not part of this community yet, go ahead and subscribe. Here at Mr. Brian Inspires, we remind each other that healing is real, growth is possible, and hope is still alive. Stay strong. Stay gentle with yourself. I'll see you in the next story.